Simon, Teresa's. She called.
This does funny things, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I've never seen this before. Like, it's this.
Are we ready? This meeting of Tipp City Exempted Village Schools, the Board of Education will come to order. We'll start with the call or the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can take an offense to the Board of Education members, please.
Amber Drum,
Here.
Richard Maines,
Here.
Simon Patry,
Here.
Ann Zakor. Here. And then Mrs. Dunaway is not present at the moment. She'll be here later on this evening. We do have a quorum. We can begin the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Move on to the approval of the agenda.
I want to add something.
Right, Ms. Trump?
Yeah, I would like to, under committee reports, give a report from Tippecanoe Educational Endowment.
And what I would suggest is that we vote on each member's additions individually and then vote on the agenda at the end. So you're wanting to add to the committee reports?
Yeah.
And you're wanting to add the
Tippecanoe Educational Endowment.
all right. If you can state that as a motion, please.
Oh, I move to, under committee reports, add Tippecanoe Educational Endowment. Please.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Drum and Maines is to add to the committee reports the Tipp Educational Endowment, which would be item 3B. Is there any discussion? If you can call a roll, Ms. Fox.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor. Yes.
Motion passes. Tipp Educational Endowment will be added to committee reports as item 3B. Anybody wish to be heard on the agenda?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Zakor?
I'd like to remove from the consent agenda. Let's see, I'll try to do it in order. The H, overnight and out-of-state trips. And then the, oh, I'm sorry, the meeting minutes, which is 9C from March 7th. And the final thing I'd like to remove is the J, 9J, Neola, final read on the winter policy. Yes.
As it relates to consent agenda, members do not need to make a motion. Just need to note their desire to remove it. And so automatically items 9C, 9H, and 9H will be removed and moved to new business. Item 10H will now be item 9C, or 9C will become 10H first, rather, and which will read prior minutes, March 7th. 9H, overnight and out of state trips will now be, I'm sorry, that's 10I, not 10H for the minutes. 10J shall now be the overnight and out of state trips.
As soon as we vote, I will go in and start amending the letters, and then it should automatically fall into place. That's as soon as I know how to. Just slide them
Vote it
down,
down
yeah.
in case it's easier.
10K will be Neola 40.2. Winter 2022 final read. Anyone else wish to be heard on the agenda?
We have to repeat, if you look at 9I, consent, which nobody has asked for that to be removed. And then please look at new business 10H. Are those the same? One says
No.
final read versus first read. They're not.
If it's okay, Mr. Patrick, I can answer that. I is a clerical situation. We had the big pack of the fall last meeting, and as a technical issue, we uploaded the original draft from Neola rather than our revised draft that the committee talked about. And so when you approved it last meeting, we just had the wrong attachment. And so we're putting the correct attachment in, so we have to vote on it again.
Okay.
So that's what that group, it's just a big pack. The other one, remember, we had 4 or 5 policies that we pulled out,
Yes.
and we talked about them at a work session. That's the new business first read.
Anything else, Mrs. Secor, on the agenda?
No, thank you.
Mr. Mays, did you have anything?
No.
All right. Foregoing motion and consent agenda items being removed. Is there any further discussion or thoughts on the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the current agenda as amended.
I will make that motion.
Mr. Mays, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Mays and Mrs. Drum to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Ms. Fox, please call the roll.
Means,
Yes.
Drum.
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
You can give me just a few moments, I'll make those changes.
Ms. Fox, if it doesn't impede your process, can we move on to citizens' comments as you make those revisions?
Yes, definitely.
All right, we will move on to item 2
Thank you.
of the agenda, citizens' comments. We have Mr. Don Watson.
Don Watson, 335 West State Route 571, Tipp City, Ohio. I recently I read an interview with Judge Capizio, a Montgomery County judge, that helped bring the dragons to town. When asked by the journalist, he said most of his court decisions were guided by common sense. He has elected not to run this year. If I apply common sense to the figures in open enrollment, they don't add up. If I understand it, we allow a student to come to Tipp from another school. The state gives us they did give us $6,020 per student that came. Now I understand that the new dollar amount is $445. So the former treasurer in a public records request told me that each student costs $11,000 to educate in the Tipp system. So if the school board is elected by the taxpayers, then why would we spend $10,545 on a child whose parents spend nothing to send a child to Tipp City? Now, if you change it to tuition, like it was when I was in school, then it may add up. It's fair for everybody. And now, as of the paper a couple weeks ago, the city planning board okayed that 174 new homes will be built in Tipp City at Summit Landing. This backs up to the on Peters Road. The problem with this, it's a new experience for Tipp City that I can ever remember. The address of this farm to be developed is in Troy. The students go to Troy schools, and so Troy schools get the tax money, so Tipp City wouldn't. But if you're a new person moving to Tipp City, the tradition has been you want your students in Tipp City. So if you go by the record of the average 1.5 child per household, and you multiply that by the 174 houses, you come out with 261 children that would be wanting to come to Tipp City schools because they live in Tipp City. But the law of the land of Ohio, the taxes follow the land. So we're going to have 261 households not paying any money to Tipp City schools, but because they moved to the incorporation Tipp City, they probably want their students. So if you run the numbers on this, it increases a lot by the decrease in the state refunding. And now you're talking about 2.6 million in real estate taxes that will not be going to the Tipp schools, but because of the situation, the land that's being developed. So I feel that it's unfair to have open enrollment when you have a large block of people that are in the corporation limit. And I know last year or the year before, it was brought up and it was stated that they didn't want, you can have the whole state of Ohio in open enrollment. But if you say, for instance, Northridge, Northmont students, they were said that they may not want to come to Tipp City because of the far drive, they may fall asleep. Well, we have teachers and administrators that live a lot further than that who drive to Tipp City. And I hope they're not falling asleep. So I would appreciate your openness to not just jump for open enrollment, but get the facts behind why it should be tuition or it should be no open enrollment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mr. Stan Evans with Tipp City Rotary. Mr. Stan Evans.
Yes.
Yeah, did you sign in as a speaker or you're just signing on the list? Were you just signing on a list?
Well, I just signed in because I'm here. I don't,
Okay.
we're here with the Rotary Club. Scholar.
Thank you, then you're good. Well, I'm glad we got to
I had
recognize
to
you for all
say.
you do in the community.
Yes,
you know?
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Kathy Bono? I'm sorry. Bone, I'm sorry, I misread the E, apologize.
Yes.
Okay. I hope you vote no on open enrollment tonight. I've said it before and I will say it again. We are, as a district, need to focus on the students that live in the district. As an example, after the last school closure for COVID, I received an email from the school. The youth wrestling team was not allowed to practice when the practice sessions were open before school was back in session for learning. Youth wrestling is a non-school
sponsored activity, but they, like other student athletes in other districts, use the school facilities as they are representing the school at the events they participate in. According to the email I received from the school, they were not allowed to practice, even though the older athletes were, because it stated they are non-sponsored school activity, as I said, and it was very time-consuming and costly to clean and properly disinfect anytime the schools are used for any purpose. These kids are Tipp City students, and they can't, and yet we can't keep up with cleaning for our own kids. So we played on the COVID merry-go-round for over 2 years now. While we are seeing some things return to normal, how long before the merry-go-round picks up speed again and we're forced to play again? How many of the rules for reporting the cases, staying home, seating arrangements, cleaning and disinfecting the schools will continue or will return? Will we see the schools close again, even for a temporary period of time? We have no way of knowing that. At a recent White House briefing, the comment was made that the administration is going to ask for more money from the taxpayers as they foresee supplies for COVID dwindling by June or July, and they don't want to run out before the resurgence of the next wave. With that remark being said, I don't think the merry-go-round is done spinning. Add to that the district report cards. How are they looking? Kind of sporadic because of COVID again, but the overall picture in 2021, we were at a performance index of 77.3. In 2019, 3 schools in the district had an overall grade of C. Recent reports said the students have been coming in citing the poor performance of students all over the state and the nation. Students were reported to have lost anywhere from 1/3 to 1.5 years in some school subjects. Every report I have read says the students' learning over the past 2 years has been very hampered. It's now time for our students to catch up. We're about to embark on testing within the next few weeks, so hopefully when those reports come back, we will see some improvement, but we will know where we need to go to improve. A few board members in the past were concerned about the money aspect for it and voted for the money aspect. A current board member even said in the last work session that for us as an individual, it was always a financial issue. That statement alone is kind of very sad. If the concern is only about the money, that's sad. It should be for the students always. We also need to worry about the kids that are going to the other districts, 58 of them this past year. Find out why they're leaving. Maybe the board needs to set up a policy where we can survey those parents, find out why they're leaving and fix the problems here in Tipp to bring them back to keep their money. We also have 80 homeschooled. You still get their money, but still, why are they homeschooled? Why do their parents not feel that they can be educated here in Tipp City? We as a school district need to let our teachers focus on the students that live here and spend the time on them to help them bring back up their performance levels. We know these kids could and should be highly performing. We don't need to bring in other students when ours are still struggling, as many students in many districts are right now. We need to let our teachers focus on our students that live here. Please stand for the students in this community and vote no on open enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bone. Ms. Dawn,
Hey guys,
welcome back.
I hope everything's going well for everybody. I think about you guys a lot. I know your work is hard. Yeah, I so appreciate it. Just being on this side, I appreciate everything you guys do. So thank you. Is it my turn? Oh, okay. So I just, again, wanted to a little bit weigh in on open enrollment. I think part of the problem with open enrollment is that it remains an ideology conversation. We don't have a policy, I haven't seen, or guidelines that are going to tell us how we're going to implement open enrollment. And that's really where I struggled there and where I struggle here. Of course, I believe in fairness and equity and allowing parents and families and students to decide what is the best educational route for them and their families. What we lack, and we continue to lack, is how we're going to structure that to make sure that everybody has an equitable and fair chance if you decide to go open enrollment in Tipp City. And I've heard, and I continue to hear lots of stories about how open enrollment used to be a phone call to the right person and your student got in. That shouldn't be a way open enrollment works. And I don't see a policy and I don't see guidelines that are going to ensure that that doesn't happen again this time. And I think that that's where the conversation is getting off the rails to whether I like it or I don't like it, because we don't really know what it's going to look like in Tipp City because you haven't produced anything to tell us what it's going to look like in Tipp City. I'm also concerned because I've had quite a few parents reaching out about their child with special ed services not getting the services that they need because the current staffing is not adequate for the students that we're currently servicing. So I'm not sure how you're going to make sure that students that we're bringing in are going to get the services that they need if we don't currently have the staffing to provide the necessary interventions for our Tipp City students right now. And then above all, we're talking about buildings. Again, our buildings lack currently the infrastructure that they need for students and for teachers to be successful in their teaching endeavors, but yet we feel like we're going to invite other students into the same buildings that aren't providing what they need to provide for our current students. You also have a levy or bond that you're going to have to pass to fund this building. And now you're going to tell parents in the community that we've invited other students in to buildings. Now it's going to be maxed even more. We're not getting a financial bump. I know Simon and I continue to disagree on that. That's fine. But it's going to be you're going to have to communicate around all of that and really consider all of that before you just blanket yes to open enrollment. And again, you've got to give something to us, the community, to tell us where this is going and what direction and how it's going to look like before you just vote yes. And if that means waiting a year, asking parents, asking the community, having work groups, what should this look like? How would you know if it's a fair and equitable process? Do it. There's wisdom in waiting and seeking feedback. 1 year goes super fast, and you can't undo, well, you can undo a bad decision, it just takes a lot longer. But I would just encourage you to use wisdom, to slow down, to wait, give us something that we can look at before you pass open enrollment.
Thank you, Ms. Dahl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Some persistence comments. Ms. Fox, are you ready for us with the agenda?
Yes,
Provisions?
proceed.
All right, so if everybody refreshes their agenda, the meeting should be corrected. Everything appears to be in order. Move on to committee reports. Item 3A, Miami Valley CTC meeting minutes.
Okay, everybody should have received by now the minutes and had a chance to look over them. This is from the February 8th meeting that we had, which that was the first meeting that I got to attend as a board member, and they gave me the oath of office. And it was a very nice meeting, as was the one that we had a couple weeks ago in March. So I'm very excited to be on their board. They're a bunch of good people. I have a few updates that are currently going on. Just to give you a report of what's been happening with CTC. They recently hosted their 34th National Technical Honor Society induction ceremony on this past Sunday, and they had a total of 167 inductees. Students from Tipp City included Gabriel Atkins, Lona Mayberry, Mayu Sakamoto, Monet Smith, and Peyton Taylor. So we had a pretty good representation from our school district. And we have our own National Honor Society coming up, I believe, this Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, so I can't wait to go and see our Tipp students too, because you guys are all great. And you know that, I told you that before. So it's good to see you guys and our great teachers that are responsible for that. So between our representation from Tipp High School to the CTC and everything else and our own students, I think we got a pretty nice community here. So the class of 2022 will have, you'll see around the community MVCTC graduate yard signs to display provided by the CTC. And then The 2022-2023 student ambassadors recently selected for the next school year include Tipp City students Reagan Hall and Sydney Taylor. So congratulations to them. The Miami Valley CTC Prom will be held Saturday, April 9th in the Multi-Activity Center, and you'll get to see me dancing in there and doing all that other, no, I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna do that. So
That was awesome.
yeah, I'd need a chaperone if I was there, so any volunteers?
Yeah.
Let's see, the CTC Senior Recognition Ceremony will be held Friday, May 13th at 7:00 p.m. if anybody wants to go to that. And it's going to be at the Wright State Nutter Center. Acceptance letters for the 2022-23 school year will go out at the end of this week for incoming juniors. And to date, there are 988 students that have been accepted, and there's a wait list of over 161. So they're going to have over 1,000 seniors this coming year.
Wow.
So that's my report for the CTC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mason, for your report. Moving
I
on.
have a question.
All right, go ahead.
So, Mr. Maines,
Mhm.
these minutes, CTC, you didn't create these minutes, right?
No, I'm not the secretary.
Okay, well, here's where I'm gonna go with this, because Mr. Gilmore would do his own minutes when he attended. And so I don't know what your thoughts are, if you're planning to do like a recap.
No, I'm not planning on doing that.
Okay,
So if you want to go with me, you can do the minutes for me.
No.
So,
no, I'm fine,
all right, good.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So, because if I remember correctly, I think we used to approve the CTC minutes that Mr. Gilmore would present.
I think it's just a report.
No, we did not.
Just a report.
And they do so those were not prepared by Gilmore. They were prepared by
No, I
the
think-
treasurer of the
No, there were
CTC.
two sets.
So
There were
there's two
sets.
different ones?
Yeah, it's
Russ
the one
prepared
from the
those.
CTC, and then Russ kind of summarized and
Yeah.
took his high points.
Is that something that we're required to have done from our board?
Just a set of minutes. And so by the board member being here, the board member can report out, on what happened at the meeting and can give the highlights, but Russ did a write-up. Because he's not a board member, so he did a write-up and sent that to the board staff.
And I thought we approved his minutes, but the reason I asked this is if, I just got to thinking, because I couldn't remember clearly, if these are just CTC minutes, they're official minutes, we shouldn't be approving those, especially
Right.
if they haven't yet approved them. You see what I'm saying? So I'm glad we clarified that. That's why I asked that
All
question.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
It's just a report. Next item is 3B, Tipp Canoe Educational Endowment. Ms. Drum.
Yes, so I've had the privilege of attending meetings with the Tipp Educational Endowment for January, February, and March. So I'm slowly getting my feet wet in there. But at the last meeting, I just wanted to thank, again, Tipp Educational Endowment, Holly Alexander, the middle school counselor, and Liz Robbins for the Terrence Talley event. I have heard nothing but fabulous things about it. I think that everyone really enjoyed it. My kids even came home and told me all about it. So my kid never tells me anything. And then also at the last meeting, it was mentioned that they're accepting nomination forms for Teacher of the Year. So parents, if you want to nominate teachers, please go onto the Tipp City website and under support organizations, click Tippecanoe Educational Endowment, and then the Teacher of the Year form will be at the bottom. Please fill it out and support your teachers. That's all.
Thank you. I would move to add two items real quick to the committee reports, items 3C and 3D. The first would be Facilities Committee, and then the second one would be Tipp Monroe Community Services. As reports. Is there a second?
Second.
First by Mr. Patry, second by Ms. Drum. Motion is to add two items to committee reports, items 3C facilities reports and item 3D Tipp Monroe Community Services. Is there any discussion? Having no discussion, go ahead.
Yes. Where is the report? So you're gonna add the report?
I'm gonna give the report.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying there's a document. You're going to give a report. And is that gonna be reflected? Mrs. Fox, are you updating?
Right
that?
now, I'm just writing it down.
There's
So
a current motion. I was about to open the floor up for discussion.
the first item,
This
you
is
said
part
the
of
second,
that discussion, sir.
I'm sorry. The first report, the second one is Tipp Community Services. The first one was facilities.
So
Trying to
if,
see
to-
where am I putting my motions?
so your question,
Just
Ms.
under
Secor, goes to parliamentary
Yeah.
procedure. Currently, there's a motion in place. If it passes, Ms. Fox will add that to the agenda and then a report will be provided.
Yes.
So this is under committee reports. I'm adding a motion.
Yes, correct.
I just add another, okay.
And to parliamentary procedure, I think we have some future parliamentarians here, I'm not sure. But if I remember correctly, the process is a first, a second, which opens up the floor for a discussion. And then after that discussion, the vote.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, Ms. Secor?
Sure. On 3C, the committee report,
Correct.
yeah, that was part of my discussion, asking if in fact it was a paper document, but you clarified that you're giving a report. So
I'm sorry, my question is, did you have anything else you wanted?
on A, after you give your report,
Any other discussion on the motion itself? If you could call a roll, Ms. Fox.
I'm sorry, I'm really confused. What are we?
We're gonna add this to the agenda.
The
so we
motion
can
is-
talk about it.
Yeah, so the motion is to add it, not talking about the actual items yet. So
We have
the
a
discussion
motion.
was related to the merits of adding it to the meeting. Then, if that passes, items 3C and 3D will be reflected in our agenda. We will address them in order.
Okay,
And then during the report, if anybody has any questions or creates any other motions, that happen at that
I'm
time.
sorry, my apologies. I thought this was already in part of the agenda approval, but it slipped through. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the item, am I adding a motion? So I have to add an item to vote on because the other two were discussion items. So we're not voting on the CTC, we're not voting on the TEE. So we have a new item
Yes,
to add an item.
Yes,
So add two.
Yeah,
to add two items.
Yeah, whatever
So
you
there's a-
did during the approval of the agenda process, you're just redoing that.
Yeah, so I'm adding an item to committee reports. to add an item.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's how I have.
yeah, first, the question before this board is whether to add that. And so all you need to do at this point is take a roll of the membership to see if they wish to add these items to the agenda.
Okay, we have a first by Patry, second by Maines.
Second by Drum.
Okay.
Yes.
Drum,
Are you allowed to combine two separate items in that?
If you wish to ask to have them separated,
Well, it's not that, Mr. Patrick, I'm just not sure that that's the proper. Yeah, I always thought you had to have, you can't combine two and,
that could be the case, I don't recall.
yeah, but they're two separate entities.
Call the vote,
Okay.
please.
Patry,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes,
Maines,
Yes,
and Zakor.
Point of order. Under Robert's rules, we should be whatever the motion was, prior to the call of the vote, that motion should be stated to the assembly prior to the vote. That extra layer, the way I understand it, going back, because we did just have sort of a fragmented discussion here. Once you get ready to call the vote, that motion should be stated back to the assembly so everybody is clear and that we're all on the same page of what we're voting.
The motion was stated
So-
to the board. You interrupted out of order. I tried to answer your questions and tried to explain parliamentary procedure, what would occur next. we are now at the point of the vote. If you had the vote, you're either yes, no, or abstain.
Well, Mr. Patrick, it's very difficult for me to cast a vote when I'm not sure exactly what I'm voting on, because I know the first one, you said committee report, I believe.
The motion that's before this board
Yeah.
that we're voting on is to add items to this agenda as 3C and 3D, under 3C being facilities reports and 3D being Tipp Monroe Community Services report. That is what's before this board. That's the motion to add those two items to the agenda as 3C and 3D. That was stated, it was repeated, and we've called the vote. The vote is to you.
I will say, prior to this, that under procedure, once it's called and second, it is customary, I believe, under parliamentary procedure, to repeat the motion back to the assembly prior to the vote.
Point of order. We are now at the voting stage. You have three options. You may vote yes, no, or abstain.
Abstain.
Motion passes. Items 3C and 3D have been added. While you add those in this box, I just go into those if that's all right with you. 3C facilities reports. The facilities committee met with Mr. Richley last week, and Mr. Richley provided the committee a very interesting presentation going back multiple years as to the history of the different projects considered, the different things done to gauge community's interest, including a Fallon survey that was conducted on a previous plan that failed, that was focused on Broadway, and up to the latest version of all the failed bond in 2019 and the attempts to resurrect that bond with the OFCC office in 2020. And then the net result of the meeting is that Mr. Richley was going to go back and, after meeting with us, get some numbers and report back to us. Also, he requested the various items and reports that had been provided by Energy Optimizers so that he could also review what they had provided us and let us know if we were getting an apples to apples comparison, as the board had requested us to do, and he will report back to us. All of this at no cost. And Mr. Stefanik, Mr. Maines were also at that committee meeting, and I welcome them to provide any comments if they have anything to add to that.
I would just add that, it was a very well put together report. We saw drawings, we saw floor plan layouts, we saw many different options, and we are going to actively seek the opinions of our students and our teachers and our committee. And it was a great meeting. It really was. The pictures I saw, the potential layouts were just fanatic. They were great. So I was glad that I attended that meeting. It's very, very informational and very educational. And I emphasize once again, we want to do what's right for the kids and the teachers. So we'll be listening to what you have to say. It's really very important.
Mr. Frank, did you have anything to add?
I just appreciated the historical perspective, going back to the 11-12 school year, and seeing what ideas were being considered to address the facilities needs. And for me, I think there's some ideas from some past plans. There's some ideas that may have come on the table here recently, and I think as we start to look at all the options, then it'll give the community plenty to look at and plenty to think about as we ask for their input.
Anybody have any questions or relate to the report?
So as you guys are moving forward as a community, when will we start to see I'll back up. Have teachers been included yet on any of these discussions, or is it still just figuring things out right now?
that's in process.
Okay,
We're getting the
Ms.
information.
Yonker and I have talked about finding representatives from the teachers
okay,
to participate.
okay. And then once that, then it'll start moving forward as far as like plans and projects and ideas and things like that. Okay, cool. Just wanted to clear that.
And as individual board members, we don't have any authority or power to add anyone to the committee. People who make up the committee are typically, I believe, handled by Mr. Stefanik, the
Yes.
superintendent. And so it's my understanding that Mr. Stefanik, like he said, has started a process to involve the teachers. At this point, we are more at the investigation phase, getting the numbers, having an understanding of what's occurred. We're gonna report all that to the board. And once we have figures and things of what's occurred up to this point and what that means financially to the school district, then the board can decide, you know, in what direction they wish the school district to proceed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Some input here. I'd like to make.
Is it a question about the report, or are you wishing to discuss the merits of the project?
It's kind of both.
I would suggest that you focus your questions onto the committee report itself. If you wish to provide direction or comments as to what the committee should be doing, I would suggest that you make a motion for that at a later time under new business.
Well, thank you for your suggestion.
I would say Robert's Rules of Order required us trying to be polite.
I didn't read that one, but it's often been said that sometimes the answer you get is defined by the question you ask. And so when we talk about options in the building facilities, I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, I keep hearing this and I get this sort of sense that things are moving forward, but I'm not really sure based on what. I'm not really sure how the momentum to move forward has been determined and what those things are that are moving forward. That's where I'm really unclear. And that just sort of leaves that warm and fuzzy feeling that I'm having right now. So I think generally just doesn't, I'm concerned about that.
May I speak?
And also, Mr. Means, yes, if I may, real quick though, you mentioned about, you saw some, I think, renditions or drawings or.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and so that's, again, I don't even know what that is. We talked about getting the costs with the at no charge, which is great. What the updated materials would be in today's dollars. But I don't even know the updated materials in today's dollars for what? Again, you say, well, we're gonna to renovate versus building new, and I totally get that. But what I'm saying is now we have a new possible plan, which I thought was very intriguing about keeping Broadway and adding a smaller portion onto LT Ball and raising Nevin Copic. And I can understand we would look at dollars, based on that model. But then do we have other models? Is the model still to keep Broadway, Nevin Copic and LT Ball as is with just updated renovations and, improvements, et cetera? So when I hear these conversations, they sound so clear in your minds, but they're not clear in my minds at all.
Mr. Maines, if you wish to answer and help clarify the report in relation to Mr. Corr's comments, questions, but I wish to limit it to clarifying the report or answering questions she has related to that report. I do not want to go into the merits of anything, if that makes sense, because that's not what's currently before the board.
I would say this, we are looking at all options. We have to look at all options. And I don't want this board to continue arguing about everything we do. it's getting ridiculous. Let's work together for our community. Let's work together for our kids. Let's quit questioning and arguing everything that we do. Let's start working in a positive format, not the negative that I keep hearing.
And
Mr. Patrick? Sorry.
sorry, Mr. Sapak,
Okay, go ahead.
and I think if I understand your concerns question is that the report I just provided, you inferred from that the committee is moving forward with a specific plan and has looked at drawings and things of that nature, or are moving in a certain direction. That's not the case.
That's not what
What's happening is that we are trying to understand what the value and cost of the building that we had as part of the project that was voted down in 2019, that levy, in its presented implementation, which was resurrected in 2020 and discussed with the OFCC, and what the cost of that would be in comparison to an energy optimizers renovation plan, to see what that provides the school district, the cost of it, the return on investment. We are meeting with energy optimizers and the Ridgely architects to understand those, not to make decisions or direct the process, but to ensure that they give us complete and accurate information so that we can then present that to the board. As part of that, Ridgely architects felt it was very helpful, and we all agreed to go through the history of all the levies related to the buildings, the surveys that had been conducted and not conducted, because they had watched our meeting. And for example, I was under the impression that teachers had been involved in the 2019, and while they were not involved to the extent of previous projects. And so that was all kind of discussed and explained. And then we're going to be able to bring all that information back to the board, and then the board will decide the direction. And so that's all we're doing right now is ensuring that we have the information and trying to move it as quickly as we can so we can take the next steps.
I was just going to define options when I use the word options.
Thank you.
Mr. Ridgely put on the board at least 3, if not 4 options that he saw from reviewing the past plans. And there could be an all new school concept. There could be an all renovation process or concept. There could be a mixture of renovated buildings and some new buildings.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of the last one. Well, as far as LT Ball goes, if there's a piece there, then you've actually got the renovation and the new all together. So, you know, if you have renovated at say Broadway site, there could be a renovation and then a new piece, you know, with the LT Ball site. So there's all kinds of options out there. And what I appreciated about Mr. Ridgely's presentation is he didn't try to nudge the committee in any direction. He just said the best plan is the plan that works for Tipp City and the Tipp City schools. And so about costing out the plans, we're just trying to figure out like what a new building plan would cost potentially and what a renovation plan would cost potentially, to see, because in some of those instances, OFCC doesn't become a part.
Right.
And so we have to look at all those pieces about if we get state assistance, is it enough to route us in that direction to go just towards projects that have OFCC participation? Or is there such a cost savings with renovation that we can still get to apples, type of finished product, that if we went it without OFCC participation, there wouldn't be an added burden on the local taxpayer. or the district.
And when you say all new facility, is that grades? What?
I would say yes.
Well,
To
we're
go
not
back.
doing high school,
Okay,
obviously.
well,
we're doing 9 through 12.
one of the options we saw is back in, was that the original 11-12 plan, or was it one of the teens? I couldn't remember.
So
Oh, sorry, that was you're saying we're getting into.
if I may, Mr. Stefanik, the only thing that are being valued presently is what the board has authorized, which is the 2019 plan that was presented to the community that was subject of a levy that failed, that was resurrected in 2020 and discussed with the UFCC, and then that was put on hold because of COVID. Additionally, what is being reviewed by Ridgely Architects is the report provided to the school district by Energy Optimizers, which focus on renovating buildings at Broadway and Nevin Common. The classes and the grades that make those up, or I'm sorry, I forgot, also Tipp Central. The classes and the grades that make those up have not been determined. It's just to provide us an understanding of the cost of those buildings, how many classrooms are contained within it, the square footage, things of that nature. That way we can understand what the cost is. Then we're going to present that to the board in a work session. There's going to be a lot of discussion after that. It would be helpful, I think, that if we invited Mr. Ridgely to come back and also give you the same presentation he gave us related to the history and those things, but nothing's been decided, nothing's been questioned. It's just what is the cost of those two different plans and projects for renovation versus the 2020 plan that was put on pause.
So going back to, and Mr. Stefanik, thank you. You have given the most comprehensive overview, if you will, and the most clear direction of what the options could look like that I have heard in months. Okay, and that's, I think, what needs to be understood here is that you have to have a framework, a ground framework of something that we're reviewing and looking at.
Point of order, if you wish to ask for clarification on the report, this is not time for opinion. If you wish to ask clarification on the report, ask questions, please do so, but this is
So,
not.
Mr. Stefanik, what I'm asking, when you did say all new, because you really broke it down to some understandable concepts, an all new facility, an all renovation type project, or maybe a mixture of new and old. So on the new facility, it has the concept gotten to a point of saying it could be K through 5, because we're leaving 6, 7, and 8 alone at the middle school and 7 through 12 alone? Or has that concept been
Time's up.
narrowed down to that?
Not totally, but my perception is that we're focused on the K through 5 or pre-K to 5 grade span. But
Most likely when you think of new facility.
yes,
Okay.
yes. But at the same time, I wouldn't go to the point of saying that as part of the project, no work will happen at the middle school and no work will happen at the high school. I'm not saying that, but yeah, the renovation, I guess the renovation pieces were discussed in the separate sites.
Mhm.
And the all new, if it's gonna be all new, that's a pre-K to 5.
Okay. So I appreciate those 3 categories, but sort of keep oriented on, because I was very undefined. And so I'm sorry if somebody on this board is very frustrated and considers this arguing whatever. I just consider it very good governance that you're getting things, you're on you're lining things up before you spend any money, and everybody's on the page and you're communicating with your community. And because maybe it's clear in some board members' minds because they're engaging in it, but it doesn't mean it's clear in other people's minds that aren't in that engagement.
And I would just say, I still see us in the data gathering phase. I don't see us anywhere near the planning phase yet. To actually plan the project. We still have to, that will all be brought back here to the full board before we step off into that part of the project.
All right, moving on to item 3E, Tipp Monroe Community Services report. I attended the Tipp Monroe Community Services board meeting. There were no items that they wished to discuss or share with the Board of Education, and so we had nothing to share with them. So it was a pretty short report there. Moving on, if there's any questions about that. Moving on to scholarship acceptance for A. There is the recommended action. The recommended action is approval to accept $500 from Tipp City Rotary Club scholarship funds received so that Tipp City High School freshmen Neil Mehta may attend the International History Olympiad and the International Geography Championships.
I move we approve.
Second.
There's a first and a second by Maines and Strum to approve and accept $500 from Tipp City Rotary Club scholarship funds received so that Tipp High School freshmen Neil Mehta may attend the International History Olympiad and the International Geography Championships. Is there any discussion?
I think we have 2 Rotarians out here in the audience.
Would you like to invite them up?
Yes.
Or did-
I think it would be really, I'm interested in knowing the International History Olympiad, just sort of a brief, what that is.
Well, we have a guest of honor tonight.
Yeah,
Why don't we
allow him to introduce himself?
Why don't you
And the International Geography.
let everyone know what you've been
Championships
doing,
overview.
how you qualified, and then we'll have our check presentation, if that's okay.
Hi, of course, you know, I'm Sto Mehta and I am a freshman at now THS. But when I initially qualified, I was in 8th grade. And the first portion that I took was a test. And I ended up doing really well in that. I got 49 and 50. So the next step was on an online buzzer round where I would play against students all across the country in rooms, and the top some amount of scores would move on and go to nationals. And then so I was able to do really well in the preliminary, and I went to the finals of that buzzer round, and I ended up qualifying for nationals, and which was in Arlington, Virginia. And then at Arlington, I did really well in both competitions, geography and history. I earned semifinalist honors for both. I was awarded a nice little plaque, so it's pretty cool. With that, I was able to qualify for the International Geography Championships, which are going to be in Vermont, and the National History International History B, which is going to be in New Jersey. So I'm looking really forward to that. And I've been able to qualify this year for nationals as well. And I'm looking to continue the streak on. So I would just like to thank the Rotary members and everyone for their huge amounts of generosity. Thank you for letting me come this far. Thank you for all the support you guys have given me. And I will definitely represent Ohio, Tipp City, THS, all at both competitions. Thank you.
Well, we have to approve first.
You have to vote first, and then we can present.
But before you go, Mr. Mays, did you wish to be recognized? No. Ms. Drum, did you wish to be recognized?
No, just other than congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work. That's awesome.
Mr. Corey, you said you had questions.
Thank you.
Sit down.
Sidell?
Yeah, it's hard to
Sidell.
pronounce.
Okay, so your money, are you kind of on your own financing your trips and where you're staying in your hotel and your lodging and
Yes.
food?
Yep, all that's on by my own, and with the help I've gotten, it's pretty nice now. But overall, it's gonna be as myself, and no other teachers coming with me. It's just me and my family. So we're gonna go. It's all alone.
Wow. So this $500 helps, is there like an entrance fee or a? that you have
Yes,
to-
that's the entrance fee.
Well, I would think that. And then I'm just trying to understand here, what's the end point? Like if you're the winner or whoever the winner is, when does that occur? What does that look like?
So I don't have done the full details yet, but at the International Geography, International History Olympiad, I should say, it's not the B. So there will be, in the geography championships, there will be, I'm pretty sure you'll represent your state. For example, there's gonna be individual ones, of course, but then there's also gonna be state competitions. And so Ohio's of course, gonna be represented by me. And then I will also be individually going. And so if we end up winning that, it's just, we're the winners of the world.
There you go.
That's so crazy.
Awesome. So do you know a time frame when that might be? Is it like the summer or the?
Yes, it's gonna be in, I believe, June or July. July, thank you, Mom.
Okay.
It's gonna be in July, and looking forward to having a good time. Meeting a lot of new people, of course.
Amazing. Best of luck.
I do have one more question.
Yep.
How do you prepare for something like that? Like, I
I
mean,
mean, from a young age, I've always been interested in geography. I got my first atlas when I was like 6, and I've just been glued on ever since. And I just used to look at maps 24/7. And also I've been having help from my other teachers as well they provided some example questions for the history B especially. And I've been looking at past material, past questions, and overall, I also am part of the academic quizable team. And so once or twice when I see something I don't know, I just note it down and do some background
that's
research on
really
that.
smart.
So it's a lot of on your own research, and there's not really, like a tutor per se to help you with that. I mean, there are specialized ones, but not this area. But yeah, it's all on your own preparation. I mean, of course, I have my parents with some help. They can read questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, ask her. She was reading questions all the time. And overall, it's just a lot of individual preparation.
That's awesome.
It
Good
is
job.
awesome.
Good job.
We're counting on you to be the world.
I will give it my all best, but there's a lot of tough competition.
For my comment, just like to congratulate you on all this hard work and where you're going, and wish you the best of luck. I'd also like to recognize Tipp City Rotary Club for that donation. And thank you for everything you do in the community to support our students. You do a lot more than this as well with the scholarships you provide. And so I appreciate everything you do. Is there any other discussion? Could call the vote, Ms. Fox?
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes,
and Zakor.
Yes.
there's a presentation here. The motion passes, and so do we want to do a quick presentation?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Evans and Mr. Dunaway.
Just
that cord, Mr. Evans.
Yeah. Just on behalf of Rotary, thank you for inviting us to join in tonight. And Rotary has always been a supporter of the schools, and we can plan to continue to do that. And just to make sure there's no confusion, board members occur, do you have any other questions for Rotary on the $500 donation? Are you squared away okay with it? Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Rotary, we wish you well, bring back the gold, and keep up the good work, and we hope to see you later on too, so, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you guys turn that way? Go turn that way. I was gonna say, or are you coming this way? Yeah, so then mom can get it. Mom needs her picture. Mom has to have her picture.
Mom should have that picture too.
Mom and dad both.
Absolutely. Mom works for us.
Can we,
She subs for us.
can we take a picture of like their family? Are we allowed to do that? Do you want in it? I think you guys should be in it.
Yeah, at least one.
Whatever you say.
Yeah, get in there. Come on. It's a mom moment. Where's dad? Get a picture. It's a family moment. Yep. As a mom,
while they're getting ready to pose.
Smart.
All right, smile. Awesome. Yay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Moment to do that.
They do all the extra work.
All right, moving back to agenda 5A, superintendent comments. BPA presentation.
Yes,
Mr. Stefanik?
Yes, Mr. Patrick and board members, last week, I think it was just last week, our Business Professionals of America group was able to go to their state conference, and they took third place in a state competition, and they wanted to see if they could come and talk to the board about their experiences. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Hardiman and her BPA students.
If you guys can't handle it at this point, we got a problem.
Hi, my name is Amelia Biggershouse, and I was the Vice President of the Parliamentary Procedure Group for Business Professionals of America. So Business Professionals of America is a kind of, it's helping students learn how to be in the business world. Like some students are there for accounting, some are there for parliamentary procedure, and a bunch of other professional jobs. What we did to get there was we met at least once a week, once or twice a week, to make sure that we understood Robert's Rule of Order. And we kind of like worked through that together. And we took, with presenting our Robert's Rule of Order in front of a group of judges, we had to take an online course, an online test really. And that could help our score or hurt our score. We were the highest placing, which was third place, freshman sophomore team, and we won over a group of a couple groups of strong business, seniors and juniors of strong business schools all across Ohio. So and at state we had amazing different opportunities like meeting new people, and we got to be voting delegates for our
The state candidates
for BPA, and which was very exciting because they are basically the face of Ohio, and we got to compete and learn about parliamentary procedure, and now I'll pass it over to Kaylin Schultz.
Hi, so I'm Kaylin. This is my campaign manager, Taylor. So I ran for state officer, and then I had to give a speech, which I can share with all of you. So when we walk the road alone, it can be difficult, but when we travel together with a friend, it's much easier to reach greater success. Hi, I'm Kaylin Schultz, and together, let's travel the road and make BPA a place where greatness is made. Since I was a young girl, I have done gymnastics, and over the past 14 years of being a gymnast, I learned that it takes time, dedication, and the willpower to want to be great in order to achieve greatness. This success was not done alone. It was done with the help of others. It is these qualities that I bring to the position of officer for Ohio BPA. I'm willing to make time to help grow BPA. I'm dedicated to serving the state of Ohio and helping all members achieve their best. And I have the willpower to work through challenges we will face as we strive for greatness in our organization. The last piece to our master puzzle is to work together. Together, we can work and achieve our goals. I'm Kaylin Schultz, and together, let's travel the road and make BPA a place where greatness is made. So this speech was a speech that I gave when I ran for state officer in front of all of the voting delegates. There were, I think, around 400 voting delegates that were all allowed to go up and vote. And then afterwards, we had a booth, which I've set up out here for everybody to see if they'd like after. And they would come by and they could ask us any questions they had. They could just look, and then they voted. And then for running for state officer candidate, I had to go through officer screening. So I did this over Zoom with a panel of judges, and I gave them my speech and I answered so many questions. And then I had like an online course kind of thing I had to do. And then I went to state And so when you become state officer, you have meetings about once a month. You represent almost 10,000 people from Ohio. And yeah.
A lot of responsibility.
I'd also like to add that this was the first year that we've had this organization at our school, so the fact that we could make it so far is really nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully next year we can get even farther and get like a bigger trophy or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it might be because you have some great leadership.
Definitely.
You might have a little something to do with it.
Yeah.
These kids are outstanding. I can't tell you how proud I was. I mean, freshmen and sophomores, look at them. They handled themselves with maturity. I had a great parent mom who joined us on the trip, and it made for a great experience all the way around. So you're going to hear more from these folks, I guarantee it, because they're not stopping.
Good job, Katie. Is this a female only or?
No, it's just, there were 6 of us and
Yeah,
we're
so
all.
we just-
girls.
it is-
It just worked out
yeah,
that way. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Look out, Business America.
Exactly.
Coming.
They are. Thank you for giving us the time in your meeting.
Thank you.
It is us that thank you for coming and all the hard work, and I will apologize for probably violating 100 rules. of
On that note, I would like to.
I'm sorry. Man. You want us to point a order for me, or? So I think what you've done, it obviously shows how much work you had to put in. You had to learn a lot very, very quickly. I think it's a testament to Ms. Hardiman as well, and your parents and everybody else, but you have a lot to be proud of, and we can't be proud for you, but we're very happy that, and you're presenting us amazingly well. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Good job, ladies.
And on that point of order, since they have competed in their parliamentary, I just looked up the Ohio School Board Association. 6 things that must happen to adopt a motion. Members make a motion, second a motion, board president states the motion.
Point of order,
debate.
that's completely out of order.
And
Point of order is completely out of order.
Now, the 5th thing that we discussed here, ladies, and I'd like you to know.
Point
The
point of
members
order, and this is
vote.
not.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
We're gonna get one picture real quick.
That was.
Oh, yeah.
You all look very lovely.
Yes, you guys do. I love your matching shoes too. It's so cute.
Thank you.
So
They
cute.
didn't like the walking around.
Here first.
I love it. I know, right?
These girls can.
My girl Grace, ready? Smile, but she's part of their group too.
Really?
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job, ladies.
Item 5B, curriculum maps and standards for 2022-2023 school year. Mr. Stefani?
Thank you, Mr. Patry. Mr. Patry and board members. I'm anxiously looking for.
She's coming.
Dawn, she's right around the corner. She's coming.
Oh, there she is. I'd like to introduce again to the board, this is Dawn Scott, our curriculum director, and she's here to present some new curriculum maps and standards for 2022-2023 school year.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. For the 2021-22 school year, the following departments participated in their curriculum review: art, music, drama, physical education, health, and world languages and cultures. First, I'd like to introduce the distinguished members of the curriculum committee for this year, many of whom are here tonight behind me in order to present their curriculum updates. Representing the art department, Joan Lucas, Patty Brown, and Alexis Gentry served on the committee this year. Sharon Pfister and Amanda Casey from the music department, Candace Jasinski representing the drama department, Denise Robertson and Corey Breath from the world languages and cultures department, Andrew Gherkin and Joel Dirk from PE, and Jennifer Brown and Amy Suter from health. During our monthly meetings, the committee members reviewed their Ohio State standards to ensure standards alignment. There were updated standards from the state in the areas of art, music, and drama, as well as in world languages and cultures. There were also new Ohio legislative components in health education. Staff members within these departments also engaged in professional dialogue over formative and summative assessments, horizontal and vertical alignment, differentiation strategies, and instructional practices and resources. Our new curriculum map format does include many of these topic areas in order to showcase more specifically what the teachers are doing in the classroom for the students, rather than just their standards. In total, our teacher teams in their respective departments completed 70 curriculum maps to exhibit their robust curriculum offerings in the Tipp City School District. In the last few weeks, I've also been able to visit several classrooms within these departments to see the great work of our staff. During my observations, I saw 5th grade rhythm challenges, students creating Gothic cathedrals and superheroes in art classes. I've also watched and tried to participate in the 1st grade jump rope challenge, witnessed conversational Spanish about movies and musicians, and students presenting fairy tales in French. I was so impressed with the personalized and authentic lessons, formative feedback from our teachers, and high level of student engagement. Our art, music, drama, PE, health, and world language departments offer our students a plethora of opportunities to explore creative expression, problem solving, and application of their learning. Now I will turn it over to Joan Lucas, who will provide updates from our art department.
Good evening, everyone. I am Joan Lucas. I am the LT Ball visual arts teacher, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dawn Scott for her support, her flexibility, her collaborative leadership as we move through this process. We spent about 6 months working on these, and the folks that I worked with, they were absolutely wonderful to hear what's going on in everyone else's areas of study. Beginning with visual arts, it's been a long tradition, and I've been here for many of these years, for us to offer high quality instruction to all students through our visual arts department. Our goals are to develop 21st century skills that include creative problem solving, fine motor, collaboration, communication, responsible decision making, risk taking, perseverance, and innovation. To achieve this, we are using the Ohio standards, which are also derived from the national standards in visual arts ed. We cover creating, producing, responding, and connecting. And through this continuum of complexity, we do this throughout all of the grade levels. It doesn't happen just in high school. We are talking to the students. We are asking them to communicate what they are producing in their pieces of artwork. I'm pretty sure you got our visual arts standards. Okay, there is the one that actually came from the state of Ohio. It just has kindergarten through 4th grade. It gets more and more complex as it goes up in the grade levels, and it's up on the board. There is tons of components that you can go through and look at in this. I used one of mine, for example, the 4th grade in creating. The students go through quite a lot when they are in these classes anymore, because we try to hit every one of these domains. Creating, for example, the students are going to hit drawing. They're going to be introduced to painting and color theory, sculpture, mixed media, and printmaking. We do, for example, boot camps. And the kids love that. They're like, what's a boot camp? And they come in and we introduce them to different skill sets, and they practice those. And then once they practice them, then they get to actually make a piece of artwork with them. I could go on and on because I can talk about art incessantly. Miss Dawn can tell you that. And Even after 28 years, I still get excited every day. I can hardly wait to go in. And sometimes I say I'm going to go in and play with my kids today because their enthusiasm is absolutely amazing. And it's so fun to still go into work. We have some improvements that are happening within the visual arts departments. The addition of high school offerings. I'm speaking on behalf of Alexa Gentry. AP Art and Design have been added to the course offerings. Accelerated Art Studio, Photography and Digital Design. Alexa this is a big endeavor, has joined the National Art Honor Society. This is really important for students that are going on and to college and technical schools. Technical advancement, expanded use of Chromebooks and other technology district-wide to facilitate and support student learning. Professional growth and leadership. 3 of our 5 art education teachers, we are on the regional board of the Ohio Art Education Association. And that's just such a good avenue for any educators to be introduced and have all of the different art teachers from in your area and then on the state level. We're excited about reintroducing art shows now that we're through COVID, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Pfister. She will introduce our music curriculum.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Pfister. I'm representing the music department tonight. I am a 4th and 5th grade music teacher at LT Ball. So on our slide is our overall purpose. I won't read every single one of those, but just to highlight some of them, we believe music is an essential part of a well-rounded education. We also believe we offer high-quality music experiences all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. We promote and encourage creativity through collaboration as well as individuality. We develop an awareness of worldwide culture, and we provide many performances for the community. So on this next slide, you can see that we also have 4 standards. 3 out of the 4 are really the same as art, creating, responding, and connecting, but we do have a different one, performing. And the curriculum allows for developmentally appropriate instruction at each grade level. As the curriculum continues, it becomes to be more complex. And I think, on that slide is 2nd through 4th grade, I believe. And like Dawn said, she was able to come in and watch a rhythm lesson she even participated and played the game with the kids at the end of the class. So that was a lot of fun to have her in there and have her experience that. It was nice, very nice to have time to collaborate with the other 4 music educators in the district. We were able to sit down and really have great discussions about our overall purpose here in Tipp City Schools and what we were actually providing for the students. So I would like to thank Amanda Casey, Steve Parks, Stephen Manath, and Jennifer Whiteman for their help in developing this, because even though it was Amanda and I for the main part of most of the meetings, they did join us, and they did a lot of work on their own as well to help us develop this and make it a great curriculum, we think. And then we have improvements as well. So we have a few additions of high school course offerings, AP Music Theory and CCP Music Appreciation. Addition of extracurricular opportunities. The high school has an a cappella club choir, improvement to the winter drum line, creation of Broadway Tiptones Club Choir, We Double Music Club. Nevin and Broadway both have community and family engagement nights. And then of course with COVID, I think we were all forced into improving our technology skills, even though none of us really thought they belonged in music, but boy, did we find out we could use them a lot. So those are our improvements. And with that, I will introduce Candace Jasinski, representing the drama department.
Hi, my name is Candace Jasinski. I'm a theater teacher at THS. Our overall purpose in the theater department is to support studies happening in other areas in a more theatrical setting where we can help the kids explore what they're learning in other areas and apply it in unique ways. Also, the development of the whole student, particularly public speaking skills, confidence, collaboration, 21st century skills. And I have the same general standard areas as the other art teachers. Okay, our vertical alignment. So it's a little different for theater because we're only in the high school, but I divided up the courses to make them a little more easy to understand how the progression works through 9 to 12. Our foundational courses are Intro to Theater and Stagecraft 1. That gives students a basic idea of how to function within a theater company, basic protocol, and really experience as many areas of the art form as possible. And they progress into intermediate courses, which are Stagecraft 2, Theatrical Performance, and Film Appreciation. This allows students more opportunities to apply these concepts within a controlled classroom setting, and Theatrical Performance even puts on a full show. Stagecraft 2 has projects that apply to our main stage production. So they're really getting a chance to apply what they've learned in their foundational classes. And then our advanced courses this coming year will only be Actor Studio. It's a chance for kids to learn more about performance technique and develop their portfolio should they choose to study, after high school. And then in future years, we'd like to progress the Stagecraft into Stagecraft 3. Where the kids will have more chances to design and really advance what they've learned in their foundation and intermediate courses. I provided an example lesson from an improv unit for Intro to Theater, an example unit. And it's a pretty standard. We get to cover for each of the units for Intro to Theater. I try to include something from every domain of our standards. It's pretty straightforward. And then our drama improvements. We've added film appreciation. Really excited to get a chance to promote media literacy and film history. And I'm very stoked to share that with our students. Stagecraft 1 and 2, we're taking theatrical production and we're dividing it up into 2 levels, really to help with kids gaining those foundational skills. Again, the basics of what each job and production company does and a chance to practice that before they're applying it to the production, which the actual performance was basically applying it directly to the production. So we're getting a chance to separate those to really facilitate student safety and that development piece where they can have a solid grasp of every area. And I'm taking acting studies and turning it into Actor Studio, which is a more focused course rather than it was more of experiencing the basics of performance than it was focused on really developing actors. So I've taken the foundations of exploring performance, putting that into Intro to Theater, and acting studies gets to be a technique class where students get to really develop their portfolios and classical and contemporary monologues, exploring classical and contemporary work. And okay, and I'm going to introduce Andrew Bergin for physical education.
All right, welcome, thank you, I appreciate it for having me here. My name is Andrew Bergin. I am the K1 physical education teacher at Navin Copic. I also want to give, I know a few of the other committee members did as well, but tell Dawn thank you, and the board and Mr. Spana for allowing us to kind of collaborate together. It's extremely important to allow us the opportunity to go ahead and to kind of work together and kind of collaborate on what we're doing in our other buildings. Sometimes we don't always get that, so it's extremely important for us to be able to do that. I would kind of be on the same page for us, to kind of put this all together for our curriculum maps. A couple of things here I just want to kind of touch on. Obviously, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it is important. A lot of people say, well, why do we need phys ed? Those types of things. So it is important. Basically, our job is to recognize that physical health is an essential part of a student's life, and then obviously also show them or kind of promote lifelong learning opportunities, both to help their social and physical wellness of everyone. And so that's kind of what we kind of took and kind of ran and developed our curriculum map, kind of based off of that a little bit. The next slide talks a little bit about our vertical alignment has a copy of our standards. Again, I'm not going to read all those to you, but they are kind of condensed. They were kind of revised, revamped back in 2015. They originally adopted, I think there were 7 of them at that point in time. They've kind of condensed them a little bit And they are the same for all K through 12, all right? They are all the same for K through 12. There's no really difference from that standpoint. They do, the next slide here, this is a little bit about bands. It's broken down into different bands. So there's like a K2 band, there's a 3-5, there's a 6-8, and then there's a 9-12. And so obviously the different buildings, some encompass just simply one grade band, like me being a K1, I encompass just this band, but like I'll give Nick Petro as an example. He teaches 2nd and 3rd grade, and so he obviously has to kind of cover 2 grade bands of all 5 standards. All right, but again, it shows a little bit of progression here. I think the next slide is vertical alignment, but right there it shows a little bit about kind of the progression that goes from kindergarten into 1st grade and 2nd grade. Specifically, I think throwing is the top one, and just kind of talks a little bit about the differential between each of the grade levels within that grade band. All right. The next slide is just a little bit another example of something specifically about a K2. Something that I do off of team building locomotor skills. This is a big one for kindergarten and 1st grade, since obviously they're just kind of building their fundamental motor skills. And so this is a big one that I kind of picked, and it just kind of shows you a little bit example of what the map looks like. I think you guys all did get a copy of that as well, I believe, correct? Okay. All right. And then kind of highlight the last page here, a little bit, some of the improvements that have been made since we've last done a curriculum map. Obviously, I talked a little bit about the revision to the 2000, or they were revised, excuse me, in 2015, the phys ed standards were. A couple additions for the high school course offerings. They do have strength and power, and then the adaptive PE mentoring. A little bit about that from my understanding, Mrs. Scott help me out, but from the way that I understand, that's Mr. Dirk that's doing that. That is kind of for students that have an aspirations of possibly getting into the education field, and then they kind of go in and help him in his adaptive class and kind of get an idea of whether or not this the education field is something that they kind of want to go into. And it doesn't have to be, from my understanding, it doesn't have to be just phys ed. It can be anyone that has any aspirations of going into kind of education in general, I believe. All right. One of the things that there is very near and dear to my heart is the Elementary Kids Heart Challenge program. We, from my understanding, I've only been here, this is my 6th year here. Prior to me arriving, I don't know, I can't speak to Broadway or LT, but I know from my understanding is the Kids Heart Challenge program had not been done. That is originally the Jump Rope for Heart, or the Hoops for Heart program. The name's kind of been changed here recently. But that's big to me, and I do want to tell, obviously, to the community that I do appreciate all the support that we got. Just to kind of be honest, to toot my own horn a little bit, is our students, our K1 students, I'm just being honest, our K1 students last year raised almost $11,000 for the American Heart Association, which is absolutely amazing, obviously for the donation for that, but then it also does help us as well, because the American Heart Association, based off of the amount of money that you raise, they then give you money back that you can invest in your program. So like it allows me to get new equipment and different things like that. All right, and then this year, the final numbers are coming in, but this year we just finished up, as Mrs. Scott said, she was actually in my class at that time, participating with my 1st graders for the Kids Heart Challenge program. One of the lessons that we were doing at that, in fact, I think we were doing jump rope monopoly, but yeah, I was not mistaken. But I believe we're right around the $4,500 range for this year, so that's something that's kind of really big. I know that obviously since I've been here, Jeannie, Mrs. Cook, and Nick Petro also do it at Broadway and LT, and I know that they are able to kind of raise enough money to allow them to get some like improvements of equipment, different things like that. Some of the community events there, you can kind of see there's some community events there that we also do as a phys ed department. And then obviously, as Mrs. Pfister just spoke about just a second ago, is obviously with COVID hit, we did have some technology improvements over the course of time. And hopefully we'll continue to add those as well. All right, that's all I've got. So I think at this time it's Mrs. Brown for the health department.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for allowing us. And I just want to express gratitude also to Don and everyone who gave us the opportunity to work together. I am just in awe of the amazing professionals that I get the privilege of working with. And I think everyone in the community should feel good about the offerings that our school has and the quality of it. It's mind blowing. My own kids went through this. I'm glad they got to experience that. So shout out to our community and school. So I'm Mrs. Brown, it's Jennifer, and I've
been teaching health and PE for 24 years. And Mrs. Studer is my collaborator at the high school. She teaches high school health. So between the two of us, we have 44 years of experience behind us. You should feel like your kids are in great hands, because they are. So the purpose of our health program, we wanted to reflect the values that Tipp City District fosters for all the kids, focusing on bullet point 3. And I apologize, I'm using my phone and my eyes are getting 24 years older. So our big thing is we wanted to establish a robust health curriculum that reflects the most current and accurate information and data trends for responsible decision-making for our young students. And health is kind of one of those fluid content areas where things do change over time. And it's important that Amy and I stay up on, our old textbooks do not have the word COVID in them. So that will be something, that we're going to add with our new textbooks. On to the next slide. So we have our health education update. You can see we actually have Ohio health requirements by grade, and we separate them out K through 6. You can see an itemized list of topics there. And at the K-6 building, our PE teachers, our school counselors, and our DARE resource officer help teach those lessons. And then Amy and myself take care of 7, 8, and 9, 12, obviously in our respective buildings, and the topics covered in their in-health education class, which is where they get to take those. Notice there, after July of 2023, we have some legislation where they would like us to now include suicide awareness and prevention for our students, safety training and violence prevention, and social inclusion and instruction lessons for our students. And those are obviously very important. And I think, as everyone's mentioned, with the pandemic and online learning, we've seen trends of higher levels of anxiety, depression, not just needing to address the academic lapse that we might have had due to not being in class, but also to help the kids as people and help them with things that they need that are outside of academic areas. And one thing I want to assure you too on that, at the bottom of that last slide, I apologize, John, we want to make sure that we have sensitivities with particular health topics and transparency for our parents and the community. So that little note there, we make sure that our lessons are age appropriate, and that the health curriculum in our local district reflects what Tipp City students need, what Tipp City parents want for their students. And then my next slide is just a sample of one particular topic I teach. 7th grade, there's a lot of data that supports, this one is about alcohol education. You can see a few of the standards included in the sample. Age 12, 13 is about the time we see that a lot of students may be tempted to experiment with drugs. So and alcohol being one of those, of course. So at my building, I really hit all of the drug substances hard in 7th grade. On the right side there, you can just see some samples of some of the instructional resources we use. And the kids really like the hands-on items that I can provide, along with a lot of technology. And then Amy's slide as a curriculum sample, the next one is for grade 9. That first aid and CPR is also one that is legislated to be taught. And so Amy makes sure she includes that for our high schoolers. And as I think all of us can agree, what a wonderful skill to be able to provide first aid if you were a first responder at a site of an accident, or CPR provided possibly if needed in an emergency. And then finally, some improvements to our own department. Amy and I have done a good job. Our district too, our teachers, our building administrators help keep us informed on new legislative requirements. She and I both do additional training and professional development, like online learning forced some of us older teachers who may not have explored technology as much. I have to tell you, we've embraced it, and things like Google Classroom, Edpuzzle, we find that it increases student engagement in the classroom. Also accessibility for outside of the classroom when kids are sick now. Before the pandemic, we didn't have as good a way to address that. or students that need to be out for appointments and such, we can keep them connected to the classroom and take away their excuses for not knowing what's going on in the classroom too. That last program there, Good Life, a new program that was brought into my 7th grade health class and also Mrs. Studer's 9th grade health class. Great organization. They would come in and do like 1 lesson a week. The focus was on student wellness, promoting social and emotional learning, really emphasizing what is resilience, helping them learn growth mindsets and how to be self-confident and build positive relationships with each other. We are very excited about our brand new textbook. I think the adoption app we're excited to get busy developing even more lessons, reach a broader group, and updated information is probably the most important thing there too. So if you all, thanks again, appreciate having me. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm at the middle school, shoot me an email, I'll get right back to you. And that brings up our wonderful world languages and cultures teacher, Mr. Bruff. Thank you.
Thanks. I also want to echo what these lovely folks have said. Dawn Scott has been phenomenal this year with working with us. And I want to say, I just love that she came into the classroom, all of our classrooms, and really engaged with the students. So we really appreciate that. And it's been great working with her. So we have a really strong world language program at the high school. And we're really excited about the changes and improvements that we are making to make it an even stronger program. Our main goal is communication. So you're going to see that woven throughout our curriculum maps, our classrooms, our day-to-day, everything is about communication and also culture. There's a focus on culture as well. We want our students to be global citizens, winners of the world, if you will, as stated earlier. And that's really been our focus so far, as far as our curriculum map goes, with communication and culture. So those are our focuses. And you'll see that in our purpose. Like I said before, where are we, Dawn? Sorry.
Okay.
That's okay. No. You'll see the interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational communication. Those are from the ODE standards from 2020 that were updated. And so those are the 3 modes of communication with a cultural goal in mind. And you'll see that in the curriculum map as well. This is just a snapshot of one of the curriculum maps that we did. This is French 1. So those are the 3 modes with the cultural goal. And that just is one of the units for French 1. And here are some improvements and highlights, recent highlights. We've adopted the French 3 and French 4, sorry, through CCP Sinclair. We have adopted a new online resource, which is called Moses Digital, and that'll be in place of a traditional textbook. It's an online resource. It's basically like an online textbook, and we love it, and we're really excited about it. We've also done a ton of field trips and language experiences over the years. 8 or 9 years now since we've done their curriculum review, and we've incorporated a lot more technology as well as the other departments have. So we're really excited about the future, and we hope you are too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any closing remarks? Mr. Scott?
Thank you.
In closing, they're the best. This is my first year. I brought in a new map. I said, let's get to work. Tell me everything about everything. And they did. So they invited me in. I couldn't ask for a better group to work with in year 1 and getting out in all of the different arts departments. It's been really fun and my honor. So I want to thank them for all their hard work. And any questions for me?
Not a question. I just have to say, as a former educator, holy cow, guys, like you pulled it all together. Like that is phenomenal. You went through all the books and the state standards, and I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away. Good work. This is amazing, guys. I mean, absolutely amazing. Amazing.
True.
And first year, like
Truth. Dig in.
holy cow.
And I
Wow.
want to thank Mr. Stefanik too. The 12 people on the committee, like, I think it was Jennifer, I can't remember, they were here once a month, but Mark also supported everyone coming over because it really was all 27 teachers working on maps together, watching small groups in this room. Once a month during all of our PD days, they met together with all of our vertical alignment conversations. So I couldn't be more proud and just thrilled with the work that they've done this year.
Good job.
Yes.
It looks intensive. I guess one of my questions would be, since this seems to be a first, what was in place prior to this? And I guess what I would say, what was in place or why was it not in place?
There were things in place. We had curriculum maps. So when I came in, I had many binders that I started to go through. Tipp City is on a 7-year review cycle. So we kept on the same cycle when I came in. Just more of lists of standards without a lot of specificity. And so when we first met with the group in September, I talked about my own experience and what worked for me as an educator. So it wasn't just a map to throw up on a website and say, we've done our curriculum standards review. It's what kind of map can we create that actually shows the work that we're doing, the resources that we're using, so that when other teachers come in, I'm not just handing them one piece of paper and saying, here's the list of the state standards that you can get online. So in addition to those I can statements and state standards, which is important, it also lists the other work that the teachers are doing, the instructional strategies, the differentiation approaches, and their assessments as well. So the map was more comprehensive and I think really showcases what the teachers are doing in the classroom more than just the list of standards. And they loved it.
I can't, it's amazing.
The energy in this room when they met was pretty amazing. You could feel the work that they were getting done on a monthly basis when they were in here.
I tried to bring bagels. Bagels.
So this is a great improvement. Thank you.
I just want to thank you and the committee and everybody that came to talk today, and Mr. Stefanik for the amazing work that you've done, and I'm very proud that we have such great people. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Even Joel.
Moving on to treasurer's report, item 6A, monthly financial report. Ms. Fox.
So February was a good month. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Things are on the horizon for how we're going to plan for next year, and we're wrapping up this fiscal year. So I go to compare prior months of February, and we're definitely in line, real close on both revenues and expenditures. It amazes me how consistent we are. However, timing can be, on the general property tax. If you look there, sometimes we get February deposits, sometimes we get March, depends on if we're advancing property taxes in or waiting for the final settlement. So that is one factor on the revenue side. We did deposit more property taxes this month. And the state funding, it's a little, just a hair down from last February. And I think the reason being is because we did get that ample catch-up payment in January. So there again, until we get to the end of the month, the end of the fiscal year, when I can truly compare what we were looking at last fiscal year according to this fiscal year in comparison, it's hard to just kind of go month to month right now, the way they're phasing in changes. But there again, even with that slight differential, it wasn't a whole lot. So the revenues were better on the healthcare this time versus expenditures. So when you look at the healthcare, that's always good. Keeping the claims lower for the district. Nothing truly stands out unless anyone has any questions about the month of February or any of the things I've reported to them.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Fox? The recommended action is to approve the monthly financial report for February 2022. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve.
Motion by Mr. Mays. Is there a second?
A second.
The second motion before the board is the approval of the monthly financial report for February 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I would just make one note is that I don't approve of financial reports that are audited. If I have questions related to the accuracy or have any concerns, I would voice those with questions or comments. My not providing any reflects that I don't have those questions. But as a matter of course, I would not approve a monthly financial report that's not been audited. Just make that note. Anybody else have anything else? All right, Ms. Fox, did you call a roll?
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Abstain.
Patry,
Abstain.
and Zakor.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 6B, fiscal year 22 appropriation amendments. Ms. Fox?
All right, as we kind of go month to month, I still look at the budget, of course, and have to present this to the board and then to the county auditor for the appropriation approval. And so this month, general fund is fine. The 001, we're not making any movement in that. I think we're going to leave that one alone. So the only changes I'm presenting today is the principal's account. So at the bottom of my appropriation sheet, if you see the attachment there, I just have listed the changes. We're presenting the principal's fund at the high school, or pardon me, Mr. Gingrich, the principal's account. He is at Navikopic. We're looking at purchasing some more smart boards and technology with some fundraising dollars that we've received just as of recent. So like we made some deposits here in February and beginning of the school year, Mr. Stevens and I transitioning, some of the budgeted items were just not in place. So if we are receiving in funds, then we can go ahead and reappropriate, which Galen would like to get, Mr. Dinger, excuse me, would like to get some things on order. So we're going to go ahead and reappropriate the budget for that building, the principal's fund. And then we have also the 200 account is a fund for student activities. And the one there that stands out at the high school, the Deviliers just budgeted just a little short for some of their events and actually supplies, services, kind of across the board. They're looking to spend a little bit more for that group. And the 467 fund was the Student Success and Wellness Fund. And we have had those funds coming in over the years, but before they were going into a separate fund, not the general fund. And that account did have an amount budgeted for, however, because the amount now is part of the general fund. And we did go ahead and deplete some for some of our counseling services. And then I just had to kind of take that budget down because it no longer exists. And the amount budgeted for some of those items is already within the general fund. So I'm just for clarification on there, taking the fund away, we no longer will use that fund for student success and wellness. And that's because really the state, I think, is allowing for more of that money to go out to the students and to the schools for that type of service, wellness, counseling, what have you. So that 73.5 there at the bottom is just kind of clearing out that budgeted amount.
Can I ask you, Mrs. Fox,
Sure.
on that item number? Is it 467?
Yeah.
That was typically, in the past, where I remember that was a federal grant.
It was, yeah, it was, so it was a grant and it was separate. So it wasn't just automated.
Correctly, we're not getting that?
We are getting the money, it's just in the general fund. So it's just a separate fund. So for accounting purposes, the money is still coming in,
But
it's just in a different number.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we still get the money. The next one there See, I've got the 507, which is ESSER. As you all know, that was one of the latest grants that was a result of COVID, learning loss. Things the district needed to improve air quality. There are several reasons why we were given the money. I was just trying to increase some areas for what we did at the beginning of the year. I didn't really have it all budgeted for. And the ESSER itself is for a 3-year period, this particular grant. So what we were approved for can be used over 3 fiscal years. And so we just are kind of playing it month by month, to figure out, or what are we gonna for sure buy, purchase this fiscal year, we're gonna put it into next fiscal year and then the following. I have amended that fund. And then the last one there, the 499, was a school bus grant. We were at one, somehow we budgeted for 35,000. We actually are going to be receiving 45,000 that Tipp City was approved for. So now school buses are like $110,000. So if they want to give us 45, it's almost half. That's great. So I budgeted 35, but we're going to spend 45, but then we do get reimbursed for that whole 45, which is good. The items at the bottom similar, so I'm adjusting the funds for the revenues in. So obviously, if we're going to expense an amount, we need to assume we're going to have the revenues to cover those amounts. So I think next month I'm going to look a little closer at our general fund just to go through the entire. I think we probably have at least 1,000 accounts or something. So when I'm looking at, I think I'm going to just start kind of fine tuning it and, to keep within the original budgeted amount, which you see there, 22,874,000. That has just pretty much been fixed because we budgeted for plenty, but I don't think it's going to go up. I just want to fine tune it across all of our accounts. So that's just something that I wanted to share. I'm trying to keep the budget where, I can get to the end of the year and clearly be able to look to see what next year is going to be. So anyhow, but if anyone has any questions, I'd like to be able to answer those.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Fox? I have a question. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to ask you before tonight's meeting, but when we're moving, so it looks like, for example, Student Success Fund, now the general fund 467, we're taking that out of there, in the amount of 73,500, because it's now part of the general fund. And maybe I don't understand how this flows, but would there not be a corresponding entry to the general fund to reflect the change into that fund?
So there potentially could be, and that would be appropriate had I maximized all of the budget lines originally. However, when I did the general fund budget, and this would have been like May, June, July, Mr. Stevens and I were kind of, the system and what we've done in the past, we pretty much kept the budget what last year was. So they'll allow us to just, and then if we know, we're definitely not going to get this, or this is a curriculum year. Oh, we got, so we get the ballpark of the large items, but we were able to just keep that in with what the budget was last year, because in some areas we're going to spend more this year than maybe we didn't spend it last year, or whatever it is. So honestly, I kept the budget the same, and we do have some areas of spending that is still available in areas that may not be spent. So in essence, I want to say we maybe over budgeted a little bit, but we're not going to exceed. It's right on the money with what we can spend. So I don't want to go back and increase any line items with the county or with you, because we've already accounted for that budget to be spent in other areas that may not be spent. So as the treasurer, I am able to, move budgeted items within a fund. So if it was supplies for the high school, just an example, we budgeted a certain amount. Maybe because that's what we bought last year, but maybe this year we only need, we don't need to spend that. But we kind of kept it out there, had it needed to be spent. So as the course of the year has progressed, I've I have moved that budgeted item within the fund here and there, but I've never increased the overall amount because we still have some, within the approved budget. So it's kind of that. Hopefully that didn't confuse you.
It did not. Thank you.
Yeah. I prefer not to raise the general fund expenditures. Even for next year, I think I'm just, I look at our resources as a district and it is very, according to Dave Stevenson, kind of giving me some history. Our budget has, and you'll see it in the board report, revenues are similar, expenses become, because we've just kept our budget. Now, if we have large expenses coming up, we'll have to reappropriate, curriculum, whatever's coming up on the horizon. But right now, we're leaving that wellness just within. And that student success and wellness is an improvement from last year. So the budgeted amount, which even you can see the 73, whatever, I think this year we're looking at almost 300,000 in that category. So, and that's one thing that we're just now seeing the result of that improvement. We'll have to look, as a district and decide exactly how we're going to spend that entire amount. But it's nice that it's there and available for us. So.
Any other discussions or questions? All right, if there are not, the recommended action is the approval of the fiscal year 2022 appropriations amendments. Is there a motion?
I move.
Motion by Ms. Zakor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Maines. The motion before the board is the approval of the fiscal year 2022 appropriation amendments. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call for the vote, Ms. Fox.
Zakor?
Yes.
Maines?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
And Patrick?
Yes, and motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item 7, public records requests.
Okay. I will be honest on this one. I did not attach my graph. So I'm here in the meeting and I'm going to ask Mr. Bush and Mr. Stefanik, because I know that we don't have this in writing and you probably haven't even looked back at your calendar to total, and that's my fault. And what I'm going to do is update that and definitely update the information. While we're here at the meeting, I can definitely share that we had a little bit more public requests since our last board meeting. We've definitely been working on some different items, probably almost every day. Now, I don't know about Brad. I know he's had a couple that have been, you've probably been working on more than.
I'm actually working on.
Because of some
right
of the
now.
things, but we did get an uptick on requests, and I am sorry that I didn't update my graph. I think my appropriations, I got a little carried away today with trying to make sure I had everything for that, and I didn't, my public records information in. So I'm going to plan on updating the board by the end of the week, and then next month, I'll put all that together too, to make sure it's appropriate in the board meeting slides, in the board docs. But without having the actual dollars, and Brad, I cut you off, I'm sorry, if you want to continue with what your email requests have been or whatever. But I can say since the February 28th meeting to the March 28th meeting, we've got a few extra requests since last month that we're trying to work on, so. Mark, did you want to add anything or regarding time or, okay.
We're in process. Several.
Yeah, I will get with you guys and get our chart and we'll update the board by the end of the week, so.
Questions? Ms. Zakor?
I understand you don't have it attached here, Mrs. Fox, but has the uptick been reflected in the spreadsheet? Are these entered yet, or?
I think most of them are entered. Yeah, because some of them are continuations of the items that were listed.
So just a point of clarification, Ms. Fox, when you say it's been entered, the sheet, are you referring to the Google sheet? Because the one I note that the last one that I see, at least when I just accessed it, was received by the school district on February 16th, 2022. Is there
So I
a
don't think
different one maybe?
I don't remember, some of them are current that I've had to go back and add some additional items. And there may be a few that are new then, but they seem to always go back to some of the things that we've already completed, where I get some continual communication on some of the things that I've presented, and then they come back with more questions. The one I believe that is not on there that I can for certain is an attorney request on some student data that we satisfied and dropped off. So that was completed. So that may have not been listed. And that was some student data that we took up to Troy, so.
Any other?
So I think that's it.
Ms. Corrigan,
Thank you.
Mr. Noy, you wish to say?
Yeah, no, I just see the same thing. February 16th was the last entry.
So I will definitely update the Google sheet too. I apologize for that. I do. It's unacceptable.
Anyone else?
Well, I have a question. Do Rick and Amber even know how to access this? Has anyone showed you or?
Yes.
Or, okay,
Yes.
Great, perfect.
We'll have to make
Figure
sure
it out.
that there's.
I know, I work hunting back. I
I
remember
know.
you did that.
It's figured out. We'll make
It takes me about 5 or 7 minutes to figure it out. I don't do it very often, twice a year.
Thank you.
All right. There are no items that were added to the old business. We are now on item 9A, new business, which is item 9, consent agenda items.
I'd like to add something though on old business now, just as a discussion.
All right, old business.
Thank you.
What would you like to make a motion to add something to old business?
I don't think you have to on old business, you just bring it on, yeah.
Typically you don't.
I think you have to make a motion to open up a discussion item that's not presently part of a vote or part of the agenda. So if you wish to add something to the agenda under old business, you may move to do so.
Okay, I move to add clarification on Robert's rules and motions and the role of the presiding officer in directing that.
There's a motion to add to old business an item for discussion, clarification on Robert's rules of order. Motions, is that what you said?
Yes.
And presiding officer's role in them. Is there a second?
I'll second Mrs. Zakor.
All right. There's a first and second. The motion before the board is whether to add to old business a discussion item for clarification on Robert's rules of order and the presiding officer's role. Is there any discussion as to the reason this would be added? Ms. Zakor?
Just as a point of clarity, I'm looking at the 6 requirements for Robert's rules.
Okay, so just brief, we're not talking about the discussion at this point, it's whether to add it to the discussion. So not going into the detail of what you're trying to add, just why you think it's important to add it.
Because we have not been following it.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on why to add it?
If she has a legitimate reason, I clearly want to hear it. I don't want to be doing something wrong. So sure, whatever it is. Thank you.
I think that would be worthwhile for a work session. I think we've got a lot of work to do. We have open enrollment to discuss. I don't think we have time to dive into a side tangent like this. Anybody else wish to be heard?
Well, yeah.
Before Ms. Dunaway, I want to give the opportunities to Ms. Drum and Mr. Maines if they wish to be heard on the issue.
I personally think that we argue too much and waste too much time at these board meetings doing things that really don't improve our schools.
Ms. Secor, you wanted to go again? All
No,
right.
she raised before I did.
All right, Ms. Dunaway?
I have no idea what, I mean, I have no idea what Ann, whatever your thought process is, but I do know that typically, because she is the policy person, she's pretty researched and pretty thorough. So I think what I don't want to do is not hear what she has to say, because what if it's, I don't know what it is, but if it's something that we're doing incorrect for the rest of the meeting, if we have an opportunity to correct it this meeting, let's just correct it. That makes a lot of sense to me. Right? If you're speeding, you should stop speeding immediately, not 2 days later. That's all.
Ms. Secor?
Well, now we're just, I kind of went through it so quickly by now, so I think it is relevant. It was relevant to the past board for one member who pointed out things that that member felt was inappropriate and not being done correctly, that generated about a 13-page letter to the board council, pointing all those, what that person believed was inappropriate. And so, as well as being brought up repetitively at our meetings. And so I think this is, it's fair. And just because there is a new faction, as one board member liked to, frame the old board that was here, a faction, and now that there's a new faction, I feel like the very argument that a couple board members felt they didn't know what was going on, that board member, now presiding officer, should have greater sensitivity to that, since that was raised. And this is an example of what I want to just highlight very quickly. Not be shut down.
Thank you. I just want to briefly say that if there is something that is out of order, you can raise a point of order at the time that is appropriate and germane if it's timely raised.
I tried that.
Anyone else? All right. Call for a vote.
Call for a vote.
Yeah,
Yes.
old business, just old business.
No, it's not.
Interesting.
So call for a vote whether we should add this to the agenda.
Okay.
It was Dunaway Zakor.
It was a cordon
Zakor Dunaway.
Zakor.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, and then we're.
The motion before the board that's being voted on is whether to add an item to old business related to discussion on clarification of Robert's Rules of Order and motions being made under Robert's Rules of Order and presiding officer's role by Zakor and Dunaway.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Drum,
No.
Maines,
No.
and Patrick.
No, motion fails. We are now to item 9, consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Dunaway. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Drum. It's consent, so there's no discussion. Ms. Fox, if you're ready, please call the vote.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes,
and Zakor.
Yes.
we are on to new business, item 10A. The recommended action is the recommend to approve to accept $25 donation from Mickey Wigger House. Mr. Stefan, did you want to provide us some information to it?
We received a donation for the Business Professionals of America program. Amount of $25. We're just presenting that to the board for their official acceptance.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
Motion by Mr. Maines. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Drum. The motion for the board currently is to recommend the approval of $25 donation from Mickey Wigger House. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Mickey.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nikki, but point of order and how you just set that up, so.
What's your point of order, Mr. Court?
My point of order is that you're not following Robert's rules.
Do you wish to articulate what was not done correctly?
Yes, certainly. You make the motion, and then, or there's a second, and then the board president states the motion, then there's a debate, then the members vote after the president calls and repeats the motion. The motion needs to be repeated, then the vote is called for, and then after the vote is obtained, you state the outcome of that vote, whether it passed or failed.
So every step you just mentioned was followed. A motion was made, it was seconded. The motion before the board was read and in exactly the way it was, and then it was opened up for discussion and debate. And you were the first to discuss it. The board has not yet voted on the motion.
Yes, and I used that tactic because you refused to allow it to occur. for
The point of
other
order
items.
for inappropriate
For the-
use
for the
of this
other
discussion.
items.
All right, so any other discussion that is on topic?
No.
All right. I also wish to thank for the donation. And any other discussion or questions or comments? All right, the present motion before the board is to recommend the approval of $25 donation for Mickey Wiggerhouse. Please call the vote.
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
and Zakor.
Yes.
New business, recommended action, or item 10B, recommended action is to approve and accept $1,250 donation from the Dunaway Family Foundation for the following items: $500 for the English department books and $750 for the Inferno. Is there a motion?
I motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Maine, seconded by Ms. Drum, is to approve and accept $1,250 donation from the Dunaway Family Foundation for the following items: $500 English department books and $750 from the Inferno. Is there any discussion or debate?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dunaway family.
Thank you. Yes, it was a 7-year donation, so next year is the last year. Sad.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
Oh, well.
Just a reminder, I know we're just thanking, but please ask to be recognized to speak. Ms. Dunaway?
Well, I'm sad that next year is the last year, so anyway, maybe somebody else will pick it up that's passionate about the Inferno. You never know, someone could.
I'd also like to thank you, the Dunaway Family Foundation, Dunaway family for the donation.
Yes,
Any other-
thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. Current vote or current motion for the board is the approval to accept $1,250 donation from Dunaway Family Foundation for the following items: $500 English department books and $750 the Inferno. Please call the vote, Ms. Fox.
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Dunaway,
I don't know, do I say yes or do I abstain?
Probably abstain.
Abstain.
Patry,
Yes.
and Zakor.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is 10C, Tipp Educational Endowment Enrichment Donation. The recommended action is to recommend the approval to accept $6,000 in the Tipp Educational Endowment Enrichment Funds to pay for the anti-bullying and self-worth assembly by Terrence Talley for Neven-Coppic, Broadway, LT Ball, and Tippecanoe High School. The assembly for Tippecanoe Middle School was previously approved through a T grant. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dunaway, second by Ms. Zakor. The motion presently before the board is to recommend approval of $6,000 in T enrichment funds to pay for the anti-bullying and self-worth assembly by Terrence Talley for Neven-Coppic, Broadway, LT Ball, and Tippecanoe High School. The assembly for Tippecanoe Middle School was previously approved through a T grant. Is there a discussion or debate? Ms. Dunaway?
Wow, the amount of positive feedback that we got for this particular program, the comments, it was very, I didn't get to attend it, but it was very emotional and it really struck home. So thank you so much, T. And not just students, not just teachers, but everybody really felt this was very impactful. So thank you so much, really. Make it really hit home with a lot of people.
Anyone wish to discuss or make a comment?
I would just say that I know the T is a great group and they do awful good things.
They do.
I'm glad they exist.
Mr. Stefani, if you want to be recognized.
Yes, please.
Do you want to admit?
Just great with my little regular size hand. I just want to inform the board, as said in the paragraph, this started out as a program for the middle school. But the middle school counselor shared it on, and one person that is kind of unsung on a lot of things, but she has her hands in a lot of things, is Miss Robbins. And between Miss Robbins and Miss Robbins, you want to step out here a second?
Yes, please do.
So I state this correctly, and we can clap for you too, but I just want to state it correctly. Who all was involved in expanding this out? I know you were in direct contact with
president of T, Rebecca Shinneman, said, why can't we bring this to the school? So because I sit on the board and do enrichment, that would be me. Because it's leftover money from the grant distribution cycle. So if you don't spend it, it has to go back into the foundation. So I will be honest, and I thought she was crazy, that there was no way we could pull this off. But I made the contact the next day.
Wow.
And they happened to have the day before and the day after open.
No way.
For the assembly throughout the district. And that organization worked with us from the get-go to make it all possible. But T had the money, Mrs. Shinneman had the idea, and together we made it happen.
That is so.
And so I never saw marketing and negotiating as synonyms, but I saw it in action here because Ms. Robbins was able to work with the company and just put the schedule together so that the whole school district could benefit from this.
Team effort, I love it. It was a big team effort. This
Yeah.
was age appropriate. And I went to all 5 assemblies and I got very nervous on Sunday night preceding the assemblies thinking, what did I get myself into? Because how can this man actually address a kindergarten student and a 12th grader appropriately in our district? And he did. Each one was different. It was truly phenomenal. It was a very gratifying experience. And I was happy to be a part of it and to say that every child in our district was fortunate enough to be a part. They were in attendance that day.
Superintendents get nervous about those things too. So I made it to 3 of them, went to middle school, high school, and one of the elementary performance just to make sure that he differentiated based on
And
age.
one little kindergarten student told Mr. G on the way out, this was better than recess. I don't think you can trump that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was in that meeting when you said that, and I'm just in awe that you guys pulled it all together. It was awesome. So kudos. Well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime you can ask to get an experience for the whole school district, that worthwhile.
Better than recess.
Is, yeah, if the kindergarten says that, then that's an endorsement right there.
It's like a double thumbs up.
Right?
Anyone else? I'd also like to thank Ms. Robbins and then Ms. Shinneman and Tipp Educational Endowment for this wonderful program. Anybody else? All right, with that. Motion presently before the board is to recommend approval to accept $6,000 in the T enrichment funds to pay for the anti-bullying and Southport Assembly by Terrence Talley for Darren Coppic, Broadway, LT Bowen, Tippecanoe High School. The assembly for Tippecanoe Middle School was previously approved through a TD grant. Ms. Fox, call the roll, please.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Patry.
Yes. Motion passes. We are now to 9D. GDP Group Grant. The recommended action is to approve and accept the $700 from the GDP Group. And then it relates to Tippecanoe High School Inferno.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Dunaway. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Zakor. Motion for the board is to approve and accept $700 from the GDP Group. Is there any discussion or debate?
I just want to thank Ms. Noel for as long as I've been doing this. She's been the person that is the advisor for this group. And for any board members, you being new, they have an event in the spring and the kids actually read their poems, and it's usually at the roller mill. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, you will get goosebumps. These students write at such a level, and I mean, it's impactful, it's emotional. They work very hard, and they've received so many awards and accolades. And it's just a fantastic group. I mean, clearly I'm passionate about it, but some people really just don't know about it. And if you can get a chance to buy a copy of the book in the spring, I think you would enjoy it.
Yes.
There's some pretty outstanding pieces in there. Yep, it's neat.
Mr. Cord, do you have anything you wish to say?
Sure, yeah, but I think it's I think it's kind of radical, if you will, great for Tipp. It's a little bit outside the box. It's like something you'd see more in a bigger metropolitan area, because I think what the beauty of it is, it allows the students sort of the unfiltered to just go with what it is, whether it's a short story, whether it's a poem, whether it really fosters that creativity and that inner voice of what they want to express. And the good thing too is then once that's submitted, when I understand it, then the Inferno team makes the selections. So it's not just like anything's gonna, get anywhere. So it's kind of a twofold where the creative gets to produce something, and then the Inferno team gets to do, the judging and deciding of it. And so I think it's kind of advanced for our community. I think it's really great. It is. My other question, what's the GDP group? What's that stand for, GDP? From the GDP.
I didn't know.
I heard there was a $700 grant that we received, and I didn't get any information about the GDP group. I'm sorry. Ms. Fox, when the grant came in, did you have any information about GDP?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I'm looking it up online to see if
I apologize for that. That was just, I was excited that the Inferno got another grant donation.
A lot of teachers write grants, and there's so many, they don't always get approved.
Right.
It's a lot of paperwork, and then you could get denied. So good for all of the teachers who continually try to find new grants and new sources, for funding.
Yes.
Ms. Strong, did you want to be heard on that? Mr. Mays? No. Just like to thank the GDP group for their donation. Any other discussion? All right, motion ready for a call is to approve the grant for $700 from the GDP group. Ms. Fox, please call the roll.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
Mains?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes, motion passes. Item 10E, open enrollment. Recommended action is to approve to accept open enrollment students from adjacent Ohio school districts for the 2022-2023 school year as per policy 5113. And there is content below. Is there a motion to approve? For the purposes of opening up discussion, I would move to approve to accept open enrollment students from adjacent Ohio school districts for the 2022-2023 school year as per policy 5113. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion for the board. Motion by Patrick, seconded by Dunaway to approve to accept open enrollment students from adjacent Ohio school districts for the 2022-2023 school year as per policy 5113. I don't have any comments or discussions or questions at this time. Ms. Dunaway, did you have anything you wish to say?
Oh, no, I've just been very consistent, and my biggest concern is the same as it was last year with all of the new housing developments. That concerns me. What if COVID comes back? Now we have more kids to socially distance. The other thing was when we had Mr. Smith in at the work session, I brought it up then. I don't like when they use the example of, well, if you have 5 extra seats on the airplane, it's not costing you anything to put people on that flight. And I disagree with that 1000%. And my example was, you can't compare two students. Student A and student B could be very different. And my example, one drives himself to school and leaves after school, or the other child takes the bus, has a full-time aide. I mean, there's all of these, you can't compare two students. just by saying, if you have an empty seat, fill it. And I like our class sizes small, and people are tired of hearing it, but 28 kids in algebra is unacceptable. 31 kids is worse. 31 kids in a science lab, when kids can't do their labs because there are too many kids. As a parent, I have to wonder, how are we meeting the state standards on that? Because if this exact same teacher with the exact same curriculum, one class is 16 is 131, and the kids in the 31 class can't do their labs, did we really meet the state standards for that particular class period? My argument is no. So I'll take it a step further. As a district, you're new, so this doesn't apply, but do we actually take it and look further? With the overcrowded science and math classes at the middle school, the actual kids that were in the overcrowded classes, how did they stack up in high school on the ACT, in science and math? We don't ever take it to that next level. And it's too much to police, right? If we have 26 kids per class in September, but then we have 20 houses that are done because those houses are pretty much on a schedule, then where do you put those extra kids? Your classes are already at 26 or 24 or 25. We don't get state funding this year either. That's the thing. We're not getting state dollars. So anyway, I'm a broken record. I say the same thing every year, so I'm done.
My concern is who is in charge of monitoring this information?
That's right.
Thank you.
That's
Now,
been
I
an issue
don't
7
think-
years.
I don't want to overburden the teachers.
Oh, it's not the teachers, it's the building principals and the
Well,
superintendent.
Teachers too.
Yeah.
It's not their job.
No, I don't want to overburden.
Right.
Yes.
So who monitors this information?
And again, previous to me becoming a superintendent, I was the district administrator in charge of monitoring the open enrollment program. And so you look at the numbers, you look whether or not the district has space in their classrooms, and a piece that has been mentioned a couple times before, and some people have shared some information from the past. What you don't do is you don't take in open enrollment students to the point where you have to increase staff. It's supposed to be based on, the existing staff that you have in your district. And to that end, I gave you an additional document in addition to the attachments that are in the agenda as we were breaking down numbers. And I'll start in the back. If you start in the back, you see the average class sizes, the way they stand right now. The only one that really stands out, well, there's two. Kindergarten and fourth grade. Kindergarten is a little bit lower than it normally would be. We thought we were going to have an influx of additional kindergarten students this school year. And so we put in a 9th section at kindergarten, and that's what kept us below the 1 to 20. If you put that or take the 9th teacher out, it would go up to about 1 to 20.5 in kindergarten. As we said last meeting, the state number that is used for class size ratios is misinterpreted at times, but the 1 to 25 number is out there, and that's the district-wide average. But if you just take that and break it down, if you have every class at 1 to 25, then you met the 1 to 25 average for the whole district. But that's supposed to be the ceiling. And so you work yourself down from 1 to 25. So you don't set up an open enrollment procedure on, well, let's take it right up to the 1 to 25, because as was mentioned by Ms. Dunaway, as movements happen during the year, now your class sizes just keep going up, and now you've gone beyond the 1 to 25. You can go beyond 1 to 25 as long as you have a class that's less than 1 to 25, to balance out that district-wide average. But if you look at the rest of the classes, several of them are in the 1 to 23 range, 1 to 24 range, 1 to 25 range. And our biggest class, 9th grade, you see that if you took the elementary divisor of 8 classrooms, that would be at 1 to 27. In the ninth grade. Again, middle school and high school, they're different because they break out into content areas and electives and things like that. So it's hard to do a straight breakdown up there, but if you just use the same format, eight homerooms for every grade level, that's the way some of the class sizes would break down. So in my past experience, when 25 was the district average that you had, definitely in the primary grades, what you were doing is you were trying to shoot for numbers in the 1 to 20, 1 to 22 range, for your classes. And if you would do that, then you would make the open enrollment cutoff about 1 or 2 classes below that maximum. Then if you have your 8 classes, you're gonna have either 8 spots or 16 spots for folks to move in, and you're still maintaining about a 1 to 22 class size, in your younger grade levels. So with that being said, you don't have, if you would say find open enrollment, you don't have a lot of options to say yes to the folks that fill out their open enrollment papers, because most of the classes are already above the 1 to 22 average, and the ones that aren't, they're knocking on the door of the 1 to 22 average, and so you're past the 1 to 20 or 1 to 21 cutoff, and so you wouldn't be able to say yes to a lot of folks this school year. On the front, what we did is we tried to show you what was going on at the middle school and at the high school. And we've had some conversations about, balancing out schedules. And this year, what we have, there's about, if you look at every bell for every teacher at the high school, there's about 200 or a little over class offerings, at the middle school. And right now we have 23 classes out of those 200 plus that have more than 25 students in their class. The highest class this year at the middle school is 28, and we have one of those. So the ones that are above 25, they're at either 26 or 27. But you look at the averages there, it's just a repeat. Grade 6 is sitting at a 1 to 24.6, 7 at 1 to 23.6, and grade 8, 1 to 23. That is not the bell schedule average. That is the total number of students in that class, that grade level, divided by if you would have 8 homerooms like the elementary classes have. To go through the 200 class offerings and get a class size, we haven't done that breakdown yet. Again, same thing at the high school. We've got about 200 or a few more class offerings at the high school. We've got 30 classes that have more than 25 students in the class. 15 of those are in the 26, 27 student range. 15 are in the 28 to 30 range, but we have 4 classes right now that are at the 30 student range, and those are social studies. There's some social studies bells that are bigger than some of the other social studies classes. And again, if you use the elementary formula at the high school, you see that 9th grade and 11th grade exceed 1 to 25, based on if you would have 8 homerooms there, and 10th grade knocking at the door 1 to 25, and grade 12 is at 1 to 24. So again, if you would say, okay, open enrollment, there aren't a lot of options. You may have some space in next year's 1st grade, and you may have some space in next year's 5th grade, and then K to be determined, based on the number that register between now and the beginning of school. So that's just a little extra background information in addition to this sheet that you got for the last time.
So if I could ask a question, going with the grade 10, 11, and 12 that we see here, how did those, I guess, get that high? Is there some reason that when you look at the lower grades, they're a lot less on the average, but then all of a sudden we get to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12, they kind of, what's causing that?
Well, those are, we don't have open enrollment, so those are just, they're either students in Tipp City or they are students of teachers in Tipp City. Those are the 2 factors that come into play right now for our population. So they're just, we call them bubble classes sometimes in the education realm. So sometimes you just have a big year, where there's just a lot of students at that age. And so we have a couple of those grade levels going on right now. But it's primarily Tipp residents. That's what you have, in those classes. And when you get to that point, again, if you see, and again, sometimes it's easier in the elementary levels, but when you get to the high school levels, let's take the example that Ms. Dunning was talking about. There's some science labs, or this year's social studies, they get up into 30. You have to see how many of those are actually occurring in your schedule, and then you contemplate adding staff. Then you add staff to try to make sure that the class sizes don't, get too extreme, where the students cannot, get the experiences that we expect them to get. Again, it's easier when you're talking about homerooms at the elementaries. You're just looking and go like, wow, every homeroom is at 25 or 26. That's too big for fill in a grade, third grade or second grade. Then you bring in another teacher and it takes all the class sizes down.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor, here?
Yeah.
Mr. George.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you look at like the chart that Kristen gave us, you can look and see in like 2011, 2012, there's 207 kids in kindergarten. So if all those kids continue to stay enrolled, that's gonna make your larger number sizes as you go across there. So it just happens to be the 9th grade and 12th grade are big. They have a large amount of kids that were enrolled to begin with.
No, there was open enrollment there, 15 of them. For kindergarten. Graph below.
Okay, well, still, it was a big class size, so
Yeah.
compared to the other ones, because if you look 173, that's 15 different kids, so no matter what, it's still a big class size. And then how many of those kids stayed after open enrollment? Do you see what I'm saying?
I think so, and what I'm saying is, I see your point, there's 207, but of that 207,
Mr. Court.
15 are open
Mr.
enrollment.
Court, Ms. Drum still has the floor.
I'm just having a discussion.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
we have rules for a reason. You like to enforce them. We're going to enforce them as well. Ms. Drum?
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm
Please
just,
continue.
no, it's fine. I'm just saying that was a large class size to begin with. If those kids stayed all the way K to 12, that would make it a large number that would still be around, is what my point
Even
was.
with the open.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Did you have anything else you wish to say, Ms. Drum?
No, that was it. I just wanted to make that point.
Mr. Court, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Stefani, for this. It's kind of nice to see those parameters, the high parameters and the various grade levels. I haven't seen anything. This is the first year I've seen this.
Well, what you'll see as well, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
the first comment on there is a little bit inaccurate, but if I can hit send before midnight, you will get every bell schedule from the middle school and the high school through email. It was too much to copy, and so you'll get that, and so you will see all 200 or 200 plus classes, and so it'll say, this is so-and-so's first bell, this is how many kids are in there, her second bell, her third bell, her fourth, all the way through. So that's where those numbers came from.
Thank you for that.
But we're voting now.
Okay.
No, but those won't, like I
Okay.
said, that those numbers, the summary
Gotcha.
gives you the information you need for the vote, yes.
Before, but you know,
Oh, sorry.
that's-
Sorry.
no, it's not you. It's just that
It's providing you a clarification to your statement.
Yes, and I was trying to provide a clarification, but it's okay, double standards, they exist, I see it. So anyway, Mr. Stefanik, what I'd like to ask you is, the date for this data that you gathered, like 23 classes have more than 25 students per class. Is that based off of this school year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the 21-22 school year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that does not reflect open enrollment students other than teachers' kids?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's wonderful. Okay, and yes, it would be nice to have this earlier, but hey, we've got something now that I've never seen before, and I think it's pretty telling. My position has not changed on open enrollment. In fact, I feel more convicted than ever. There were a lot of issues that I saw when I joined this board with not having, we do have a policy, but the question is the finer policy within the policy and how you implement and decide what capacities are, it wasn't there. And we asked for it repeatedly. I remember Dr. Pump telling us that Tipp values
that 25 number per class may be a ceiling for the state, but they like to look at Tipp City values, and I believe, was it 20 to 21? Is that what she said? Was it
20 to 22?
And it was used for promoting the passage. Mrs. Younger saying no. What do you remember, Mrs.?
So Dr. Combs, that was 25, was her cutoff, and the state's like 30, 32 or something. Mr. Stefanik could clarify
I
that.
remember that.
But
I remember Dr.
it was-
Cup telling her tip values was really in the low 2021. That's how I remember it. But anyway, and so that's why building for the classes and the like. But I understand that dialogue can shift. Then there was, of course, the forms. That can be corrected, though, I understand. But then there's also this idea of, I just couldn't understand, and I still can't to this point, how somebody who open enrolls can start in kindergarten and pretty much anyone finish out their senior year. It's as if to tell us for 11 years, there's never a flux of population that would oversize our classes, and therefore we'd have to have the, it's cruel, but you have to tell them, sorry, we're at capacity, you can't come back your 7th grade year. I mean, and that, I just don't know that happening. I asked that question, and did you want to interject? Because I don't mind. Okay, so, but now we have a new financial formula, which is very interesting. And for those that who really like to drill in on the finances, but I have always said this is not a monetized issue, or it shouldn't be. I really enjoyed Mr. Smith, and who invited him to our, thank you very much, Mr. Scott.
Got the name for Mr. Smith.
That was really nice of him to come at the end, but it was really valuable. And for anybody listening who wants to review that, that's on the March 7th YouTube. And a really good financial discussion starts at about the 15:11 marker. And he explained to us now with this new formula, and I wrote it all down and calculated it. And also, Mrs. Fox, you did, I think, an excellent job in your meeting minutes, which is why I pulled that out. And you captured this as well, that when you do, yeah, it was a lot.
I thought you were gonna go the other way.
I can tell you put a lot of work into that. So anyway, when you do the local capacity, the Tipp City base cost minus the local capacity, and then you take that difference and you times the 16.7 under the new funding formula, you're looking at roughly $445 per student that comes into our district. And what really struck me, what Mr. Smith said, and he's been around. It's really credible. But the cost to educate our kids at about 12,000 is kind of a phantom number. And I really respect that, because we all know in a lot of bureaucracies and numbers and the like, you don't always have a precisely broken down, accurate analysis of this stuff. It's because it's big, it's a big machine. So that phantom number of 12,000, we don't really know what it is to educate our kids. It sounds like, when you look at sort of the surface, that's probably a good number. So to get $445 off of one child is going to cost that much. The math is startling, but also what I learned from Mr. Smith, which I think is very valuable, the old open enrollment system was a swamping system. We lose kids, they take money with them from our budget, and we try to make that up by having new kids come into our district through open enrollment and grab the money they bring in. It's a swabbing system. Always said that. And so we had like 50 some kids leaving our district over the past several years. And with them went the $6,000, unless they even had more special ed. So that's no longer the case. And he made that very clear, that we will not be losing that roughly 300,000 for the kids that are our resident kids, but choose to educate themselves elsewhere, whether it's Ohio Virtual Academy, whether it's a charter school. Parochials don't count because they don't pay them. But so we're retaining that money is what I'm saying, that we had not
prior to this new funding formula. So that's another benefit, if you will. So it doesn't make any financial sense at this point, and then I've covered all the other reasons that I'm not in favor of it.
All right, I think everyone's had a chance to go.
Yes.
Open enrollment, the purpose of it, as I understand it, is to allow the school district to accept students to come in for which we would get financially compensated to help even out the ebbs and flows of class sizes. Some years you're gonna have class sizes that are bigger, some years you're gonna be smaller. If you didn't have that system, then you'd have to seriously look at, well, we may have too many teachers for a certain period of time. And this allowed us to keep some stability with our staff, provide people job security, and gave us a financial reward as well while maintaining class sizes. The new financing formula does not provide for that. And based on our numbers and what Mr. Stefanik has provided us, does not appear that we have any room for any students anyway. And so, because if you are doing the open enrollment system appropriately, Mr. Stefanik as the superintendent would look at our class sizes and judge whether we have any room without increasing our class sizes, really just to maintain what we typically do, but adjust for off years. Based on what we're seeing here, we would just be increasing our numbers, which would mean we would have to add a teacher. And that doesn't make any financial sense. Back then, when we were getting some meaningful money, it certainly does not make sense when we get a lot less. I haven't done the math, but if the $400 figure is correct, it just doesn't make sense for our school district at this time. But we look at it every year and we'll see what happens with the funding, and that's kind of how I feel about it at this time. Ms. Dunaway?
I just wanted to clarify two things, because a lot of people in the community, to no fault of their own, if there's misinformation out there, it's the district's job to clear it up. So Mr. Stefanik, you brought up a great point tonight, is people always say, we've never had to add teachers because of open enrollment. That's not true. In the 7 years I've been here, we've done it twice. It was before you, but we did, maybe at the tail, right before you came, you mentioned we added a 9th pod for kindergarten. And then also we added a 9th pod for 4th grade, maybe 3 years ago. Don't quote me on that, but we did. So that's kind of a misnomer. We do add staff, and that costs the community members money, right? So, and then the reason why I didn't feel as a board member, policy, what do we do? Policy. This district has never had a written plan to outline open enrollment. And Mrs. Zakor, I just wanted to, when you were speaking earlier, we did one time there was a situation, we had to tell a child that they could no longer come here. That's the only time it's ever happened. So you are correct in saying, how has it never happened? You would think if we are truly monitoring this, to no fault of yours, because we don't have a written plan for it. And if we had a written plan, we could easily say, hey, here's our criterion, and I'm sorry, your child is fantastic, but we can't overburden our staff. And it's not fair to the kids who live here and who are already, so nobody ever wants to be the bad guy. And without a written plan, we're just kind of flowing in the wind. It's just, to your point earlier, go with your gut. We shouldn't be going with our gut on this. It should be outlined in a policy, numbers, so that it's very black and white. It's not emotional. We're just telling people 28 is unacceptable, and our teachers don't deserve it. And our students who are here trying, we move to Tipp. I mean, I don't, so anyway, does that clear? It did happen one time. It was about maybe 4 years ago, and it was, the family came in, they spoke at the board meeting. They clearly pleaded their case. I don't blame them. And it was really, you don't like to do that, so, but we've never had a written plan. I mean, so it was kind of irresponsible this whole time when there was no concrete way to really stay on top of it. That's all.
Anybody else?
Just
Mr. Stefanik?
Yeah, but just to clear up, the 9th kindergarten for this year. We didn't have open enrollment last year, and so, or this year. So that wasn't based on open enrollment. I don't know what happened before I got here, but, with adding a staff. But that one was because there were predictions that last year, because of COVID, 5-year-olds may not be coming to kindergarten because they were just going to try to wait out, the pandemic, and they were going to register when they were 6 for kindergarten. So that if you had your typical 5-year-olds and then some 6-year-olds coming in, we thought our kindergarten enrollment would spike up a little bit. Maybe be one of those 200 classes that we referenced 10 years ago. And so we said we'll bring in the 9th one, and we brought in the 9th one. It didn't get as big, but it's nice to have kindergarten classes of 18 too. That's not bad, but again, that has to be a stated goal for K through 2 or whatever, if that's what the district wants, and then you prep for the future accordingly. But that was related to the pandemic.
Ms. Gum?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was just thinking, like what you guys are kind of talking about, once I saw these numbers and I actually saw what we're looking at, because you have a picture in your mind of what it could be, right? But then when I actually saw these numbers and you just broke it down for me, it makes a lot more sense as to why it's maybe not such a great idea, because we're gonna hit that threshold and that's not gonna work for us. To your point, not having a plan set in place, I think that's super important. And the other side of it too is when you add open enrollment students, you also have to think about the educational services that come along with it. So you could be looking at a student that, I don't know, has hypersensitivity, and so they have to go to a special school, and then it's going to cost our district like $20,000 in the end for them to go to that. So there's a lot of other factors I think that need to be considered if this is something we're looking at in the future as well.
This may be a really good time to take a break and a breather. We've had 2 years of COVID. We're talking, and we've already done the really heartbreaking part, ending open enrollment 2 years ago. It was abrupt. There was no grandfathering. COVID hit, which was a little tiny bit of a cushion because even the resident kids were sort of getting cheated out, if you will, of their senior year. But we've had this 2 years of, it's kind of like really a good, I think, a good breaking point to take a step back. We're looking at facilities. We know there's several communities that are being planned, hopefully coming out of COVID and staying out of COVID. And so we have a lot on our plate. We did have some staff transitions and this, and like, I think this is maybe just a good sign that, hey, we can take a break from this. The heartache's kind of been done and over, so to speak. And we don't want to, I don't want to reinstill that heartache, bring somebody in and then, no, you can't. And I mean, it's really emotional for the parents and for the community, the people that know them. So I think this is a perfect timing to take a break and just continue the course we have without open enrollment for now.
Anybody else? All right, I hear no discussion. We are ready for a vote, and the motion before the board is to recommend approving accepting open enrollment students from adjacent Ohio school districts for 2022-2023 school years per policy 5113. The motion was made by Patry, Dunaway. Ms. Fox, please call the roll.
Patry,
No.
Dunaway,
No.
Drum,
No.
Maines,
No.
Zakor.
No.
Motion fails. Item 10F, curriculum maps and standards adoption. Recommend actions to recommend approval of adoption of curriculum maps and standards for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Motion by Dunaway and seconded by Drum. Before the board is recommended approval of adoption of curriculum maps and standards for 2022-2023 school year. Is there any discussion or debate?
Well, I got here, I was sitting in the lobby because I didn't want to interrupt or be intrusive, but I did get here right when the presentation started. And I agree with you, there's so much work. They meet monthly. For the first time as a district this year, we have a curriculum administrator. And I think that you can really see not that, the teachers have always done what they were supposed to do, but just having that extra layer of a person who is now responsible for curriculum. I mean, I think you can feel the excitement, you can see the excitement, and kudos to the previous board, and you for allowing us to do that. That saw the need for this, because I think so to speak, the proof is in the pudding, and it's super exciting. It's very exciting. So a lot of hard work, and thank you.
I'd like to say something else though.
Mrs. Drum.
One of the things you kept asking about was that, what's the plan for new teachers that come in? I think you've said that also. Now these teachers have a plan.
Right.
They can come in and look at that curriculum map and they can go, wow, I can take this right here, attach this book, make this work. That is huge, and be able to teach that. Like that is huge as a new educator, coming in and having something in front of you that you can pull a book, pull this, do this, pull it all together and make a lesson. So it's huge.
And
I just want to
it's gonna-
explain how big that is.
Thank
It's
you.
huge.
Yeah.
Oh, go get this one.
Well, I was just gonna say, and know that what you're doing now is preparing maybe for the next class down the road. So it's a map. I guess that's where the map comes in. So, yeah.
Mr. Mays, did you wish to be heard? I don't have any comments, Ms. Dunaway.
So to piggyback on what you were saying, one of my passions has always been onboarding. So we've never had really any onboarding in the district, and that has always never sat well with me. So now that we have HR, I mean, clearly she's been working so hard. We just got those job descriptions. And so it's onboarding HR, right? Because before you know what I mean? So now think about this, you have the onboarding, now you've got the curriculum apps because we have a curriculum director. It's just like, what I said last year when we approved this, I can't believe we've gone this long without it. It's like, come on, for a district our size and the whole excellence thing, it wasn't excellent to not have those spots filled. It was unacceptable. It wasn't excellent, it was unacceptable. So that's it.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Motion before the board by Dunaway and Drum is to approve the approve the adoption of curriculum maps and standards for the 2022-2023 school year. Please call the roll, Ms. Fox.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is 10G, fraud risk assessment. Your recommended action is to approve and authorize the board president to fill out and submit the fraud risk assessment questionnaire submitted to president on February 2nd, 2022 by the Ohio State Auditor. Is there a motion?
I motion we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second by Maines and Drum. Motion for the boards to approve the authorization of the board president to fill out and submit a fraud risk assessment questionnaire submitted to president on February 2nd, 2022 by Ohio State Auditor. Is there any discussion? All right,
Well, I was waiting for the first two to go, since they motioned it.
Mr. Mays, Mr. Drum, do you have anything? Ms. Zakor?
So I do remember this conversation and I was a little bit unclear. So do we get this all cleared up? Because I wasn't, this is what we were talking about, right? Where we got a little bit like, where did this come from and what's our responsibility? And is it a board president or is it all of us? So that's all been cleared up.
So just to provide an answer as a point of clarification, I'm fairly certain I forwarded the communications to the entire board from our legal counsel or statutory legal counsel, the county prosecutor's office. That indicated that board president typically answers this and they recommend that I do, and if I don't, that it's likely to create more questions than anything else.
That's the way I understood it.
That was from the prosecutor's office to go proceed.
Yes. Was that Mrs. Corn?
Pardon me?
Was that all you had?
I think so, yeah.
Anyone else? All right. Hearing no discussion, ready for the roll on Authorizing the board president to fill out and submit the progress assessment questionnaire submitted to president on February 2nd, 2022 by the Ohio State Auditor. Motion made by Maines and seconded by Drum. Please call the roll, Ms. Fox.
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 10H, Neola 40.1, fall of 2021, first read. Now, just want to confirm here, this is stated as a first read. And there's the recommended action as well as on board docs. I don't think we're approving this today, it's just the first read, correct?
It's just first read.
All right,
That's typo.
a typo on that, all right.
This, Mr. Patrick.
Mr. Stefanik, go ahead.
We had a small group of policies that we pulled out of the fall read, and we had a work session where we talked it through. Yeah, I think there were four or three.
Three board members.
Three people were there. And we talked it through and we did some checking. These are those policies. We got them formatted through on Neola now with the recommendations from the folks at that meeting. And so they're out there for the first read, and then you can ask questions, over the next month before we get to the second read, and we can address those questions. I guess you can ask them tonight too. I guess you want to look over the next month, you have to review them and ask questions.
Anyone have anything?
There's just a comment, not so much a question.
Mr. Zakor?
Under policy 1617, and that's on page roughly 3, they're not technically numbered. Under weapons, policy 1617.
Yes.
If you look at that first green underlining, objects indistinguishable from a firearm used during school safety trainings. This is an exception that sounds like the way I'm reading this, that an object indistinguishable from a firearm, if it's used in a school safety training setting, is acceptable. And my comment is, to me, that it is not acceptable. It's just my one voice.
So Patrick, you want me to speak to that?
Go ahead, Mr. Stefanik.
With that particular one, the board asked if I would check with the teachers and law enforcement, check with the teachers and Ms. Junker specifically, and said that they would rather not, have those items used in safety trainings if we didn't need them. And when I talked to law enforcement, and this is why I don't buy lottery tickets, is that they said that they would like the option that if they felt like the training needed to be at that level to further prepare the school district and the law enforcement community on how to respond, at that level, they would like the option to be there. They said that their preparation is only good as to the realism level that they can bring to the trainings. So they said they wouldn't necessarily have to use the weapons in all of the safety trainings, but they said that if they could have that option, it would allow them to definitely prepare for those situations if they were to occur.
I'd like to follow up on the comment to that, if I may.
Ms. Dunaway gets to go next since she has spoken
Sorry,
on the
well, but
subject.
it's jury go. Well, go ahead.
Are you still maintaining?
Yeah,
Go
about the
ahead.
indistinguishable, yeah,
All right, go.
it's logical to flow with that. Okay, so my comment is this, number one, and I did not do a thorough, but I pulled some of my files when this happened a few years back. There is nothing new that I came across in studies that show using an object indistinguishable from a firearm increases safety for the students or the staff. In other words, there's not enough data that correlates having that indistinguishability somehow increases people's effectiveness for these drills.
And in fact, what there does seem to be is more evidence of emotional collateral to students and staff. And I'm just, yeah, I know this is our first read, but, and I think, again, here's the teachers, you know, the police can say what they want. They handle these things all the time. It's like tying their shoelaces. But I think that, yeah, it's not, thank you.
Ms. Dunaway?
So in 2017, we had an incident at Broadway, clearly way before you were, you know, oh, are you aware of it? Somebody inform you? Okay.
Several people.
Okay, yes. So I'm just gonna read this. The Broadway drill backfired on so many levels. I mean, I'm not gonna read the whole email, but we had many parents reach out. I was on the board then. Several students were very, very traumatized.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get into all that occurred with that, but as a board member, reading those emails, it was very emotional because it was very serious. And the board never really got any, they meaning district administration, not Tipp City Police Department. We never really understood what happened or why, but there just seemed to be a communication issue with the district, not the police department. And so that kind of goes back to my whole open enrollment thing, right? If you don't have a written plan and you don't know how to follow it, you're leaving way too many things up in the air or to your gut. We don't operate on gut. These are kids that are traumatized now. You don't just get over that. You know, you think about that for years and years and years. It just sticks with you. So I definitely am against it because as it's written, you know, to what you said, they would like the ability. We can't, no, because as it's written, objects indistinguishable from a firearm used during school safety trainings. There's no other clarification. So if we approve it, you might not be here when this happens. And then people will go, well, Mr. Stefanik said, it has to be written. We follow what is in black and white. So as it's stated, bad idea. Just, I'm thinking back to 2017, where we had a very serious situation at Broadway. And like I said, the police department did nothing wrong. It was lack of communication on the school end. And I never really did, the board never really got any explanation to what happened or what that miscommunication was, but there was a miscommunication and it did not have a good result. So this just makes me nervous as written.
Just as a follow-up to that. I didn't write the section. That's Neola language.
I understand.
So you know, we probably may have the ability to revise the language a little bit, but as you know, the Neola stamp, you revise it too much and it loses the essence of the policy, then it's our local policy and it's not Neola policy at that point. So.
And also what's appropriate at our Nevin Coppock and Broadway building, clearly the high school kids, it wouldn't have the same, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But it doesn't say in here only at the high school or only at the middle school. And if I remember correctly, we also had an issue on that same drill with a couple middle school students that were clearly upset. So it wasn't just Broadway, it was also middle school. So.
Mr. Mays, is there anything you want to ask or say?
No.
Anyone else? All right, moving on to 10I, overnight and out-of-state trips. The recommended action is approval of the overnight and out-of-state trips, specifically the Devil Airs, Miss Kaylee Roten, Dance Team Nationals competition in Lawrenceburg, Indiana from April 8th to April 10th. Is there a motion?
I will motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Maine, second by Ms. Strum to approve the following overnight and out-of-state trip. Devil Airs to the dance team nationals competition, North Spring, Indiana, from April 8th to April 10th. Is there any discussion or debate? Mr. Maines, do you have anything? No. Strong? Anyone else? Ms. Dunaway?
Are there any financials attached? I don't see a form or financials.
Yeah, the financial over here.
Okay,
We didn't know, when I did check back in other board meetings, before the last conversation that we had, that was the first time that this form had been attached to, to a board meeting. So I didn't know if the board expected the document to be attached. It goes through the building principal, and then it comes down here for a second review. We've got financials. They said that the way the financials are written is that the Devil Airs account is going to take care of the travel expenses, and each student with the agreement of their parents is going to bring money for food during the trip. And so the Devil Airs is taking care of the larger amounts, and then the meals the students are going to take care of themselves.
Anything else, Ms. Dunaway?
transportation, is it parents' cars, school bus?
This one is parents' cars, so parents are actually
Like our Gettysburg,
separated.
like our Gettysburg.
Yeah, their own students. Actually, more family oriented than the Gettysburg trip. Everybody's parent is going, and everybody's parent
Well-
is driving their own student. Yeah, with a smaller group.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to make that 6-hour trip with unruly teenagers in the vehicles. Clearly I did.
Somebody did.
That's right.
Anything else, Ms. Dunaway?
No.
Anyone else?
So was there an entrance fee for this? And who paid for that? What was the financials?
I didn't say anything about an interest fee for the competition. I'm sure there was
Oh,
one,
yeah, there was.
and that Devil Airs would just take care of that. But it's not listed on here. They were talking about lodging and the travel arrangements that they had.
Why do they need the approval if they're doing it all on their own?
Great point.
School, it's a school trip. It's a school club. So the
School
advi-
affiliated,
yes,
even
yeah,
though
the
they're
advisor.
using all their own resources, we think.
Well, if a club, a school club with an advisor, if they have an account, it's a school account. So all of that money is being taken care of by the school district. So if they do fundraisers or whatever, it comes into the school account.
I thought Mrs. Fox had a dialogue about all these trips need to be documented and the paperwork needs to be filled out for expenses. Am I remember that correctly?
Well, and that's what he's asking. Do you want to see that form on each board meeting? Because I guess they've processed these requests similarly
Yeah,
last
they put out
year.
a summary, but the actual financials are the purchase order
Yeah.
process.
And this one in particular, Devil Airs is like, so back to my appropriation increase, the 200 account.
That's what I was gonna bring.
We have a fund for those extracurriculars. When we have an employee that is servicing that extracurricular, so then we're gonna pay stipend, but we're also gonna have them raising their own funds for things like this, hotels. And so it's not like a taxpayer dollar, they are raising, but we have a separate fund where we're still gonna track their activity. We're gonna track the money coming in, we're gonna track the money going out. So it's just a different source of funding. It's their own source, how they come up with it. So.
And when is this trip? It's not showing online.
April 8th, I think,
8th.
April 8th.
And to get permission to get them out of state is definitely why we're bringing it to the board. So.
If it was a non-school affiliated trip,
Is that a weekend?
yes. Yeah. If it was a non-school affiliated trip, like sometimes students have an opportunity to go somewhere over the summer or whatever. If it's not being sponsored by us, then that's just parent permission, for the child. But if it's through one of our clubs, then it's a board approval process.
Anything else, Mr. Corn?
No.
Ms. Strong, Mr. Maines, anything?
No.
Good luck.
Yeah, bring home a trophy. Bring home a trophy.
Go the Layers.
Bring home a trophy.
I would say for my comments is congratulations on making it to nationals competition. I wish you the best of luck and hopefully you guys bring home best trophy or award that comes with. Any other discussion or comments?
We'll have to talk about championships tonight.
My only comment is I just don't feel that I have the facts in front of me to make an informed. So, and I know there's a lot of treasury things going on there with, including only paid or volunteer workers, employees or otherwise outside have to go through the treasurer's account. Remember that letter we got?
I know this one
From our
is
legal
different when
counsel.
you're saying that all the parents are going, because we always think of who we're transporting or who's, are these people safe that are going? Well, obviously it's each kid's parent and they're taking their own transportation. So that saves a little bit as far as checking those and paying for the transportation, but.
Mr. Porter, do you have anything
No,
else you want to
thank
add?
you. I'm finished.
Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, the motion for the board is to approve the following overnight and/or out-of-state trip. Devil Airs won a dance team nationals competition, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, April 8th to April 10th. Motion being made by Maines and seconded by Drum. Please call the roll, Ms. Fox.
Maines,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes,
Zakor.
No,
motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item 10J, prior meeting minutes, March 7th, 2022. Recommended actions to approve the minutes of March 7th, 2022's work session. Is there a motion?
I'm in.
Motion.
No, I strike that. No, sorry.
Is there a motion?
I move.
Motion by Ms. Drum, any second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Maines to approve the minutes from March 7th, 2022 work session. Is there any discussion or debate? Ms. Drum, do you have anything?
I'll open the floor to.
Mr. Maines?
No.
Anyone else?
Yes, my only comment, the reason I pulled this out of the consent was because we had an open enrollment discussion tonight. And I just wanted to point out here on the minutes, and again, Mrs. Fox, wow, you went, I think, way.
Yeah, just that one section. I think I just
that-
wanted a
yeah.
clarification for you all
But it
and
was
for
good.
myself.
It was
Thank
good.
you.
I looked at the tape, then I reread this, and I just wanted to point it out for people that want to kind of do that analysis of the open enrollment dollars. It is in here as well as on the tape. I just wanted to thank you for all that time because there's a lot to process. And so thank you for that. That's the reason I wanted to segue that to the open enrollment discussion as well.
Anyone else? Having no further discussion, we're ready to call the motion to approve the minutes of from the March 7th, 2022 work session made by Mr. Drum, or Ms. Drum and Mr. Maines.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 10K, Neola 40.2 Winter 2022 final read. The recommended action is to approve the revised policies and guidelines in the volume 40.2 winter update. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve the revised policies and guidelines.
Motion by Ms. Drum. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Dunaway. Motion for the board is to recommend approval of the revised policies and guidelines in the volume 40.2 winter update. Is there any discussion? Ms. Drum, do you have anything you wish to say?
I'm good.
Ms. Dunaway? Anyone else have any discussion or debate?
Yes, I do. Again, this goes back to the the other weapons policy, although that's a first read, this is a final read. So what we decide tonight, that's what it'll be. And I would like to urge people to bring to their attention a couple things. I'll start with policy 5772, weapons.
And you know what page that's on?
Yeah, this one, I usually put that on there.
All right, page 7. Thank
Is
you.
it 7? Thank you. Thank you very much. So if you go to 7.
Page 7, thank you.
The term weapon includes any object, manner in which is used, is intended to be used, or is represented, or is capable of inflicting seriously bodily harm or property damage, as well as endangering health and safety of persons. I was really surprised when I read that, actually, because we're not supposed to be bringing that on campus, but you can bring, but I guess they're using a weapon, not a firearm.
Capable of inflicting serious bodily harm.
What if, here's where I'm coming from, what if you have a handgun that is jammed, because this has been a court case, it does not fire, and it is technically by the Supreme Court of Ohio ruled, and there's on 2015, that therefore it doesn't meet the definition, quote, of a firearm. And so, but I'm looking at this correcting, it's, they're referring to it as the term weapon includes. So I'll make the point in my other one here when we talk about a firearm.
I'm confused.
This particular, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Patrick, this particular policy, it's talking about what's prohibited. So firearms are a subset of that weapons definition, and so it actually expands it out to tell the things that are prohibited. So if somebody would come on, to your point, if somebody would be on campus and they say, oh, it's not a firearm,
Doesn't
but it's a
work.
but it's a weapon. But it's a weapon.
Bludgeon
Right,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a weapon. This one, when it was initially presented by Neola, was the addition was the incendiary devices and the other pieces. So they even expanded the definition even further. That was the one big change to this one. And this is different from the other ones about the safety drills. It doesn't have that segment in here, but the other one further down in, when we went ahead and I made the selection for the weapon, it did get rolled over into this. So yeah, again, if we had protest to the other one or opposition in the first read, and I'll say something, don't know if it's appropriate inside of the motion or not, but if somebody wants to put a hold on that one policy that's in this group in the final read and take the pieces that are okay for the final read, we can do that.
Gotcha. It could be a la carte, basically.
Yes.
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 But so even in this one, under 5772, we're allowing a policy exception if it's pre-approved by the voting principal as part of a class or individual presentation under adult supervision. We're allowing the weapon if it's pre-approved. I'm just surprised. I think there's a lot of leniency there that I'm not comfortable with, but it does go on to say working firearms and any ammunition will never be approved as part of a presentation. And I guess what I'm thinking is really, I'm thinking a lot about that Alec Baldwin situation on set when they thought they had a dummy and it wasn't. So,
Oh,
Are you done, Mr.
oh,
Clerk?
yes,
Ms. Dunaway.
Well, the way I read it, I see what you're saying. Items pre-approved by the building principal as part of a class or individual presentation. So my mind went to immediately like the high school, because they do a lot of, history, World War II. And if you had a student that says, hey, I have this like gun from the Civil War, am I allowed to bring it in as part of my capstone project on Civil War? So that's kind of how I read that. Because I know that Mr. Bellis does these, and kids do ask, and it's always like, no, yeah, great, I would love to see it. Keep it at home, Billy. Don't even bring it in. So I understand what you're saying, but that is kind of how I read that section.
I agree. But then again,
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Hearing no other discussion, the motion for the board is to approve the revised policies and guidelines of the volume 40.2 winter update.
but then we have another policy on your final read, policy 7217, and that is on page 22.
Okay, so you have more.
Yeah, just these two, and they're both kind of related.
Yep, weapons.
All right, Mr. Core, you wish to be recognized again?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Core, go ahead.
22, and again, this is a final read. We are allowing this policy, if you look at 7217 and you go to E, here again, that objects indistinguishable from a firearm used during school safety trainings is allowed. Is an exception, an allowable exception to this policy that otherwise prohibits possessing, storing, using weapon, etc. That is problematic for me. The exceptions to this policy include, and then number E, objects indistinguishable from a firearm. Yes.
Are you done, Mr. Core?
Yes, I'm going to what it says.
All right. Mr. Stefanik.
This is the policy I was talking about. This one probably did an automatic revision when I gave the answer to Norm about the other one, because all the weapons policies are interconnected. And so if it pleases the board, while you're considering the other weapons policy in a first read, you could pull this one out. If somebody wanted to amend the motion, you could pull this policy out and then take care of the other ones in the final read section. And then when the board then decides, then all of those letter B's or E's, wherever they show up in the file, they would all be consistent.
My personal thought is any exceptionality to this should come from the superintendent rather than from a building personnel.
Anyone else have any discussion on this item? All right. Hearing no other discussion, ready for a vote, and the recommended action is to approve revised policies and guidelines in the volume 40.2 winter update. Motion by Drum, seconded by Dunaway. We're ready for the call, Ms. Fox.
Drum.
So can I make a motion to pull that one out then? Is that what I need to do?
She wants to amend it, yeah,
Okay,
for
so,
those two policies.
okay. Do you just want to go ahead and do it? Because you.
So just point of order?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I apologize.
No, please don't apologize.
Okay.
So we
You read
have closed the
Vote
discussion.
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Okay,
we've closed the
thank you.
discussion,
Yeah,
so
I know what to do now.
yeah.
procedurally, what you want to do is
Just
vote
vote,
no.
yeah.
Okay,
Vote
No.
and then we'll handle it after.
I'm good, no.
Okay.
I vote no.
All right, so Drum is a no.
You have Dunaway,
No,
Means,
No.
Patry,
No.
Secor.
No.
All right, next item is citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens out there that remain?
Yeah.
Motion failed. Sorry.
Correct, but do you, are we gonna look at all of them or, because it's a final read? So we were gonna amend it and just pull out those two policies, and that way we could do all the rest.
Okay, so point of order. So right now, what's happened? The entire thing was before the board.
Okay.
When I asked if there was any other discussion or comments,
Right.
that was the time to make a motion to amend. That time passed. When we got to the voting, the only thing left to do was to vote yes, no, or abstain. That motion has failed. We are next. So if somebody desires, if I can finish, please. If anybody desires to make a motion to add an agenda item 10L to new business, they can do so, and then we will consider it.
So
Now,
that's what I was
I
trying
think
to
that's
do.
what Ms. Zakor is trying to do.
Yes.
So Ms. Zakor is making a motion. Ms. Zakor, would you like to
Yes,
state your motion?
I'd like to add an agenda item to approve the 40.2 winter 2022 final read policy with the exception of policies
Page 7 and 22.
5772 and policy 7217.
That's right.
I'm sorry, if I could add something?
That's correct.
1 second, please, Ms. Fox. Right now, the motion made by Ms. Zakor is to recommend the approval of the revised policies and guidelines of volume 40.2 winter update, excepting for policies 5772 and 7217. Is there a second?
Second. Go ahead. Second.
Seconded by Ms. Dunaway. Present board. Present motion before the board. Made by Ms. Zakor and seconded by Ms. Dunaway. Is to recommend the approval of the revised policies and guidelines in the volume 40.2 winter update, accepting policies 5772 and 7217. Is there any discussion or debate? Ms. Dunaway?
I just want to thank Mrs. Zakor. This is why I love having you on the policy committee, because this is clearly your passion. And I love it because it is so time consuming. I don't think people have any idea how time consuming the policy committee is. And I've never been on it because I've always been on facilities, which is another time consuming. So amen to you. Your strength is that you are very detail oriented. And of course, I didn't know we were going to pull the other one.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful that for your detail orientedness. It's not my strength. So, and then you're new. And so thanks for volunteering because you'll write. It's a lot. It's very time consuming. So thank you to our policy committee.
Any discussion and debate? All right, hearing none, Ms. Fox, we're ready for the call. And the motion before the board is to recommend the approval of revised policies and guidelines in volume 40.2 winter update, accepting policies 5772 and 7217, made by Ms. Zakor and Ms. Dunaway.
Yes.
You had a question. Did you get your question answered? Because
Wait, so I was able to add a second motion within the item.
Okay.
Is how it takes me in. So we have one motion. We have the clear language before any exceptions with a motion fail. So then when I can go in and add a motion under an item without adding an item, so just for procedure. So I had a second motion, made the revision, exactly what you described, the exception of the final read policies 5772 and policy 7217. So I've got the motion listed, but it still falls under item K, which is just how the motion has allowed me to.
Okay.
So that's just the details
Yeah.
of board docs. So I just wanted to explain.
The content's the same, and that's what matters.
Yeah, so if we do proceed with the vote, we've got Ann Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines.
Yes.
And Patry.
Yes. Next item, 11A, citizens' comments. If there's any left
There's people out there.
that wish to speak. Mr. Watson, do you have anything you want to say? Anybody at this phone?
Nobody out there?
All right.
Nobody else here. Great.
Okay. Next item is item 12, future board agenda suggestions. Ms. Dunaway?
Is it possible that we can create a shared drive like we do with the public records request? So that all of the board members can always see what that list is? Do you know what I mean? Because I know Mr. Stefanik, you write them down every meeting, but does it make sense to put them in a shared drive? That way, at least for me, that way if I see it, my brain is thinking about it. And that I'm not saying add this, oh, it's already on there. It's like, I haven't been writing them down because I know you do. Just a suggestion. I don't know how the other board members feel about that. Don't worry about it. I'm the only one who wants it, so don't worry. Like, nobody else
It's
needs
not
to.
that, my brain's dead. It's not that.
Well, you still have the forms, though, right? Other people may.
No, yeah, I do. It's just a suggestion. I don't.
Anything else, Ms. Dunaway?
Nope.
Anyone else?
Slowing down.
No, I like that idea though, because I forget sometimes what's put in the list. There's a lot that we go over here, a lot.
Anything else, Ms. Trump?
Do we need to put that policy back on there then too? The ones that we said no to or that we need to revise?
It'll just come right up.
Okay.
Agenda review. Yeah, it'll come.
Okay, cool. Awesome, perfect.
Good question. Anyone else? I'm sorry, not opposed to the sheet. I like them. All right. Nothing else, then we are moving on along to 13A, upcoming meetings. We have a work session for Monday, April 11th, 2022 at 5 p.m. here at the Board of Education. We have a regular meeting Monday, April 25th, 2022 at 6 p.m. here at the Board of Education. This item is our adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Dunaway. Is there a second?
Drum, second.
Seconded by Ms. Drum. Motion for the board is to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none. Ms. Fox, if you would call the roll on the approval of adjourning the meeting, please.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes,
Zakor.
Yes.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.